The hyperdrive failure happened without warning. One moment Atlantis was traveling through the intergalactic void between Pegasus and the Milky Way, and the next, reality itself seemed to twist around the ancient city ship as dimensional barriers collapsed and reformed in patterns that defied McKay's understanding of physics. Alarms screamed across every system as the city emerged from the violent transition into normal space. And Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard had exactly 3 seconds to recognize that the planet filling their view screen was Earth, before his tactical display lit up with contacts that shouldn't exist. Report. Sheppard called out, racing into Atlantis' control room where McKay was already frantically working multiple ancient consoles while Taylor coordinated damage assessment teams and Ronan stood ready with his particle magnum like someone expecting imminent boarding action. "We're in Earth orbit," McKay replied, his voice carrying the manic edge of someone whose scientific worldview had just been violently contradicted. "Which is impossible because we were mid-transit between galaxies and shouldn't be anywhere near the Milky Way for another 6 hours. Except," he pulled up sensor data that painted an impossible picture. "Except this isn't our Earth. The technological signatures are all wrong. No Stargate network, no SGC transmission codes, and there are 3 massive alien vessels in geosynchronous orbit that my database can't identify." Sheppard moved to the tactical display, his military instincts cataloging threats with practiced efficiency. The alien ships were each approximately 400 meters long, their design aesthetic completely unlike anything he'd encountered, smooth, organic curves that suggested grown rather than built, but different from Wraith biotech. They glowed with an ethereal blue-white light that reminded him uncomfortably of ancient technology, and his sensors registered energy signatures that suggested power generation on par with a ZPM. "Are they hostile?" Sheppard asked, his hand already moving toward the drone weapons authorization protocols. "Unknown," Taylor replied from the communications station. "But they're hailing us. Multiple frequencies, standard first contact protocols, and..." She paused, her expression shifting to surprise. "English. They're transmitting in English and requesting peaceful dialogue. Could be a trap," Ronan observed, his 7 years of being hunted by Wraith having created permanent suspicion of any unknown alien contact. "Pretty ships, friendly words right before they try to cull us." McKay pulled up additional sensor data, his tablet painting a comprehensive picture of the planet below. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures planet-side that match the alien vessel's technology. Whatever these things are, they have significant presence on Earth's surface. Population readings show approximately 6 billion humans, but there are also," he frowned, recalibrating sensors, "there are non-human biosignatures integrated throughout major population centers. This is first contact aftermath, Sheppard. Earth made contact with these aliens and they're here in force." Sheppard felt his tactical assessment shift from immediate threat response to complex political situation. They'd arrived in Earth orbit in what appeared to be an alternate universe where humanity had already encountered aliens and apparently established some kind of relationship. The question was whether that relationship was cooperation or occupation. "Open a channel," Sheppard ordered. "Let's find out who we're dealing with before we start shooting." The view screen flickered to life, displaying a figure that made everyone in the control room pause. The alien was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin carried a faint luminescent quality. Its features were elegant to the point of being androgynous, and its eyes held an ancient intelligence that reminded Sheppard uncomfortably of ascended beings he'd encountered. The creature wore robes that seemed to shift between blue and purple, and when it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that suggested telepathic projection alongside vocalization. "I am Zo'or of the Taelon Synod," the alien said, its tone perfectly modulated to convey benevolent authority. "We welcome you to Earth and offer the hand of friendship to fellow travelers of the stars. Your vessel is magnificent, a testament to the ingenuity of those who built it. We would be honored to extend the commonality's hospitality and learn of your journey to our world." Every word was perfectly chosen to sound welcoming and non-threatening, which was exactly what made Sheppard's instincts scream warnings about manipulation and hidden agendas. "Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard, commanding the ancient city ship Atlantis," Sheppard replied, keeping his voice professional but non-committal. "We appreciate the welcome, but we're a bit confused about our current situation. Our navigation systems say we should be nowhere near Earth, and our sensors indicate technological signatures we don't recognize. Can you explain what happened to bring us here? Zo'or's expression shifted into something that might have been curiosity on a human face, but read as calculating assessment on the Taelons' alien features. Fascinating. You refer to your vessel as ancient, a term suggesting significant age and perhaps lost knowledge. We would be most interested in understanding the nature of your technology and the circumstances of your arrival. Perhaps a face-to-face meeting would facilitate better communication. We could offer landing coordinates where our scientists and philosophers could exchange knowledge with your expedition. Translation: they want access to our technology, McKay muttered from his station, just loud enough for Sheppard to hear. And they being very careful not to answer your actual question about what brought us here. Sheppard had dealt with enough manipulative aliens from Zo'or to Wraith to power-hungry ancients to recognize evasion masked as diplomacy. We appreciate the offer, Zo'or, but before we commit to any meetings, we'd like to understand more about Earth's current political situation. Our records indicate Earth should be governed by nation-states with independent sovereignty. Your presence here suggests that's changed. Can you explain the nature of the Taelon relationship with humanity? For the first time, something flickered across Zo'or's features that suggested the Taelon leader had unexpected direct confrontation disguised as polite inquiry. When the alien spoke again, the harmonics in its voice shifted slightly, still friendly, but with an undertone that felt like persuasion mixed with subtle threat. The Taelons came to Earth 3 years ago offering our friendship and advanced technology, Zo'or explained with the practiced smoothness of a speech given many times. We have shared our knowledge freely, elevated humanity's understanding of science and medicine, and partnered with Earth's governments through the companion program to ensure mutual benefit. We do not rule Earth, Colonel Sheppard. We guide it. Protect it. Help humanity reach its full potential. Ooh, Ronan said flatly. That's what every conqueror says right before they start calling. Zo'or's expression shifted into something that might have been offense. We are not conquerors. The Taelons have never taken human life without cause. We seek only cooperation and mutual advancement. Your vessel represents technology far beyond current human capability, perhaps even beyond Taelon understanding. Surely such power should be shared for the benefit of all sentient beings. And there it was, the real agenda. The Taelons wanted Atlantis' technology, wanted access to ancient systems that had been built 10,000 years ago by a civilization that had ascended to higher planes of existence. Sheppard recognized the pattern because he'd seen it before. Advanced aliens offering friendship while maneuvering to acquire whatever advantage they could extract. We'll consider your offer, Sheppard replied diplomatically. But we need time to assess our situation and determine the nature of the dimensional anomaly that brought us here. We'll remain in orbit for now. Atlantis out. He cut the transmission before Zo'or could respond, then turned to his team. Opinions? They're lying, Ronan said immediately. Maybe not about everything, but definitely about the we come in peace and just want to help routine. I've heard that speech before from Wraith commanders right before they started feeding.
I concur, Taylor added thoughtfully. Zo'or's words were carefully constructed to sound benevolent while avoiding specific commitments or explanations. The phrase guide humanity to its full potential particularly concerns me. It suggests a relationship where the Taelons determine what that potential should be. McKay pulled up historical data that Atlantis' sensors had been collecting from Earth communication networks. I'm tapping into their internet. Yes, they have internet, though it's more advanced than our 2004 version should be. And the data is concerning. These Taelons arrived 3 years ago claiming to be benevolent allies. They've integrated into every major government through this companion program Zo'or mentioned. According to official sources, they've shared medical technology, environmental solutions, and advanced science. According to unofficial sources, conspiracy websites, resistance groups, intercepted communications. The Taelons are manipulating humanity through a combination of technological dependence and some kind of neural control implant called a CVI. Sheppard felt his stomach tighten. Neural control? Like Zo'or hand devices or Wraith telepathy? Worse, Potentially, McKay replied, pulling up technical specifications that he'd somehow extracted from encrypted Taelon data streams. The CVI cyberviral implant is a biotechnological device that supposedly enhances human cognitive abilities while creating perfect loyalty to the Taelon agenda. People who receive it become companions humans who serve as intermediaries between Taelons and regular humanity. And, according to these resistance intercepts, the CVI rewrites personality, suppresses dissent, and makes subjects functionally incapable of acting against Taelon interests. So they're creating mind-controlled servants, Ronan summarized. Like I said, conquerors, but subtle conquerors, Taela observed. They present cooperation as voluntary, technology sharing as benevolent. From Zo'or's perspective, perhaps they genuinely believe they're helping humanity. That makes them more dangerous than obvious threats. People willingly accept what appears beneficial until the control is too deep to escape. Sheppard moved to the city's edge viewport, looking down at Earth below. Somewhere on that planet, billions of humans were living under alien influence that they might not even recognize as occupation. It reminded him uncomfortably of Wraith-controlled human worlds, where populations worshipped their predators because they'd never known freedom. There's something else, McKay added, his voice carrying an unusual note of concern. I'm detecting biological anomalies in the Taelon energy signatures. Their life signs are degrading, failing. Zo'or and the other Taelons aboard those motherships are dying. Sheppard, whatever's wrong with them is terminal, and it's affecting their entire species. That changed the tactical equation significantly. Dying aliens with access to mind control technology and desperate interest in Atlantis' ancient systems. The combination suggested Zo'or's friendliness masked desperation. They wanted something from Atlantis, and they were running out of time to acquire it. Can you determine what's killing them? Sheppard asked. Not from sensor data alone. I'd need direct biological samples or access to Taelon medical databases. But the degradation pattern suggests some kind of genetic collapse. Their cellular structures are breaking down at a rate that indicates they have months, maybe a year before complete systemic failure. Before Sheppard could respond, the communications console activated with an incoming transmission, but not from the Taelon motherships. This signal was heavily encrypted, routed through multiple relay points to disguise its origin, and when Taela isolated it, the message was brief and urgent. Atlantis expedition, this is the human resistance. Do not trust the Taelons. They lie about everything. Zo'or's benevolent partnership is occupation through deception. The CVI is slavery. We can provide intelligence about the true situation on Earth, but you must not allow Taelons aboard your city. They will attempt to control you. Respond on encrypted channel if you want the truth. The transmission cut off, leaving Sheppard's team staring at each other across the control room. They'd been in this universe for less than 30 minutes, and already they were caught between alien manipulation and human resistance, a pattern that was becoming depressingly familiar. So, McKay said into the silence, we've got dying aliens who want our technology, mind control implants that turn humans into loyal servants, and a resistance movement warning us that everything the aliens say is a lie. Anyone else getting Gowood flashbacks? The Taelons aren't parasitic snakes, Sheppard replied. But yeah, the control through technology angle is familiar. Question is, what do we do about it? Ronan checked his particle magnum with the practiced motion of someone preparing for inevitable combat. We find out who's telling the truth. Talk to these resistance people. Get real intelligence before the Taelons try whatever they're planning. Agreed, Taela said. But we must be cautious. We know nothing of this universe's politics or history. The resistance could be freedom fighters or terrorists. The Taelons could be benevolent allies facing unjust opposition or manipulative conquerors. We need information before choosing sides. Sheppard made the command decision that felt right despite the incomplete intelligence. McKay, respond to the resistance transmission on encrypted channel. Tell them we're willing to talk, but we need verification of their claims. Taela, start analyzing Earth's communication networks. I want to know what the official narrative says versus what people are actually saying when they think no one is listening. Ronan, Coordinate with security teams. If the Taelons try to board Atlantis, I want to know immediately. He paused, looking at his team, the people who'd followed him across galaxies, fought impossible battles, and trusted his judgment even when the odds said they shouldn't. We came here by accident, but we're here now. And if Earth, any version of Earth, is under occupation by aliens using mind control to enslave humanity, we can't just ignore that. Even if it means getting involved in another universe's war? McKay asked. Especially then, Sheppard replied. Because that's what we do. We help people. We fight the bad guys. And we find a way home afterward. He turned back to the viewport, watching Earth rotate beneath Atlantis's protective position. But first, we figure out who the bad guys actually are. On the planet below, in a secure resistance bunker hidden beneath the streets of a major city, Liam Kincaid watched the orbital telemetry showing Atlantis' position and felt something he had inexperienced in years: hope. The city ship's arrival was impossible technology beyond anything Earth or the Taelons possessed, appearing at the exact moment when the Taelons' death sleep was accelerating and their desperation was becoming dangerous. Liam didn't believe in coincidence. He believed in opportunity. And if the Atlantis expedition was truly human, truly independent of Taelon control, they might be exactly what the Resistance needed to finally break the Synod's grip on Earth. He just had to convince them to help, before Zo'or convinced them to surrender Atlantis' technology to the dying aliens who'd already enslaved one Earth, and wouldn't hesitate to enslave whoever stood between them and survival. The race for Atlantis' allegiance had begun. And the fate of two worlds, possibly two universes, would depend on which side Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard chose to trust. The encrypted response from the Resistance came through 40 minutes after McKay sent Atlantis' cautious acknowledgement. The transmission was routed through 17 different relay points across Earth's surface, a level of operational security that impressed even Sheppard's military training. When the message finally decrypted, it contained coordinates for a face-to-face meeting in what McKay's analysis identified as Washington, D.C., along with a warning that made Sheppard's tactical instincts flare with concern. Do not use Taelon-provided transportation or communication systems. Their intradimensional portals are monitored. If you possess independent transport capability, use it. Come alone or in small group. Bring no technology that could be remotely compromised. The Taelons have infiltrated every major government and corporation. Trust no one who shows signs of CVI integration in large pupils, perfect posture, unwavering loyalty to Taelon agenda. We will verify your identity and provide intelligence. Signed, Liam Kincaid, Resistance Operations. Well, that's not ominous at all, McKay said, reading over Sheppard's shoulder. Meet in secret location, trust no one, watch for mind control symptoms. We've definitely walked into an occupation scenario. Sheppard studied the coordinates, cross-referencing them with Atlantis' database of Earth geography. The meeting point was in a decommissioned subway tunnel beneath the city-abandoned infrastructure that would provide cover from aerial surveillance and enough structural density to interfere with remote scanning. Good tactical choice for paranoid resistance fighters. I'll take Ronan and go meet them, Sheppard decided. Taylor, you're in command while we're gone. McKay, I need you analyzing every piece of data you can pull from Earth's networks. Build me a complete picture of the Taelon presence. How many ships? How many of these companions? What their technology can actually do? And if Zo'or contacts us again demanding a meeting? Taylor asked, be polite, be diplomatic, and stall. Tell them we're still assessing the dimensional anomaly that brought us here, and I'll schedule formal talks once we understand our situation. Sheppard grabbed his P-90 and tactical vest. The Taelons want something from us badly enough to be this friendly. That gives us leverage. We use it to buy time while we figure out what's actually happening here. 20 minutes later, Sheppard and Ronan materialized in the abandoned subway tunnel via Atlantis' ring transporter ancient technology that the Taelons' sensors wouldn't recognize as transport activity. The tunnel was dark except for emergency lighting that had been jury-rigged to provide minimal illumination. And Sheppard's practical flashlight revealed walls covered in old advertisements for products from a world that had changed fundamentally 3 years ago. Contact, Ronan said quietly, his particle magnum tracking movement at the tunnel's far end. 3 figures emerged from the shadows with weapons lowered but ready, a practice combat formation that spoke to military training and real combat experience. The lead figure was a man in his 30s with unusual features that suggested mixed heritage, his blue-gray eyes showing intelligence and wariness in equal measure. He wore civilian clothes that concealed body armor, and he moved with the controlled grace of someone who'd survived situations where hesitation meant death. "Lieutenant Colonel Sheppard," the man said, his voice carrying no trace of the telepathic harmonics that Zo'or's speech had featured. "I'm Liam Kincaid. Thank you for coming. The fact that you used non-Taelon transport to get here suggests you're taking our warnings seriously." "We're taking everything seriously until we understand what we've walked into," Sheppard replied, keeping his P-90 pointed at the ground but ready to raise if needed. "Your message said the Taelons are lying about their presence on Earth. We'd like to hear your version before we make any decisions about who to trust." Liam gestured to his companions, a woman with sharp features and the bearing of someone who commanded military operations, and a man whose combat stance suggested Special Forces background. "This is Renee Palmer, former CEO of Palmer Industries and Resistance Coordinator, and Captain Marcus Devereaux, formerly of Marine Force Recon before the Taelons arrived and made independent military action complicated." "Complicated how?" Ronan asked, his weapons still tracking all 3 Resistance members with professional wariness. "Complicated as in the Taelons have integrated so thoroughly with Earth governments that opposing them officially is treason," Renee replied, her voice carrying bitter experience. "They present themselves as benevolent partners who share technology freely and want only mutual benefit. What they don't advertise is that every piece of technology they provide creates dependency. Every companion they recruit becomes a perfectly loyal servant through CVI neural control, and every government that accepts their help loses the ability to make decisions independent of Taelon approval." She pulled up a datapad showing information that McKay would have been fascinated by: technical specifications for Taelon technology, biological data on their species, and disturbing medical files documenting what the CVI actually did to human neurology. "The cyberviral implant is sold as enhancement," Renee continued, her anger barely controlled. "Increased cognitive function, access to Taelon knowledge, the honor of serving as bridge between our species. What it actually does is rewrite personality at a fundamental level. Recipients become incapable of questioning Taelon decisions, unable to act against Taelon interests, and are functionally enslaved while believing they're operating with free will." Sheppard studied the medical data with growing disgust. He'd seen Goa'uld hand devices control minds, wraith telepathy manipulate behavior, and ancient technology rewrite memories. But this was different. This was permanent neurological alteration disguised as voluntary improvement. "How many people have been compromised?" "Thousands of companions globally," Liam replied. "Every major government has Taelon companions in key positions. Every significant corporation has been infiltrated. The Taelons claim it's voluntary, and technically people do consent before receiving the CVI. What they don't know is that the consent is irreversible once you take the implant. You can never choose to remove it without dying. And anyone who speaks against the Taelons publicly gets labeled as conspiracy theorist, radical, or terrorist," Marcus added. "The media is controlled by companion-influenced executives. The military has companion officers in command positions. Even questioning Taelon motives too loudly can result in investigation, arrest, or forced psychiatric evaluation that conveniently ends with CVI implantation." Ronan's expression darkened. "We've seen this before. Different technology, same control. Why haven't your people fought back harder? Overthrown the companions, exposed the Taelons publicly? Because 70% of Earth's population believes the Taelons are benevolent," Renee said bluntly. "They've shared medical technology that cures diseases. They've provided environmental solutions that reverse climate change. They've offered knowledge that advanced human science by decades. To most people, the Taelons are saviors. We're the paranoid minority who can't accept that aliens might actually want to help. Except they don't want to help, Liam corrected. They want to survive. And that's where your arrival becomes critically important. He pulled up biological data that made Sheppard's blood run cold. The Taelons are dying. Their entire species is experiencing genetic collapse called the death sleep. Their core energy, the fundamental biological force that keeps them alive, is failing. They came to Earth searching for a solution, and they've become increasingly desperate as their condition worsens. The medical scans showed Taelon biology breaking down at cellular levels, their energy signatures dimming, their physical forms literally dissolving. Zo'or species had months, maybe a year before complete extinction. They think humans have genetic compatibility that could cure the death sleep, Liam continued. They've been conducting experiments, some voluntary through the companion program, so not trying to find a way to merge Taelon and human DNA. So far, nothing has worked. But your arrival in that city ship with technology they've never encountered? He met Sheppard's eyes directly. Zo'or will do anything to acquire whatever knowledge you possess, including using the CVI to control your people, sabotaging your ship to strand you here, or simply taking what he wants by force if diplomacy fails. Sheppard processed this information through the lens of 8 months fighting, wraith and years dealing with manipulative aliens. So the Taelons present themselves as benevolent allies while actually being desperate survivors who compromise human freedom to save their own species. And anyone who opposes them gets neutralized through technology or social pressure. That's the situation, Renee confirmed. Your city ship represents hope for us, technology the Taelons can't control, military capability they can't neutralize, and most importantly, proof that humanity can achieve greatness without alien guidance. But it also represents existential threat to them. If you side with the resistance, the Taelons lose their narrative of benevolent partnership. If you stay neutral, they'll work to control you through manipulation. And if you side with them, then we become part of the occupation, Sheppard finished. He'd made these calculations before, during the alliance with Queen Seraph's modern wraith. The mathematics of choosing sides when all options carried moral weight. What do you want from us?
Information about how you got here and whether you can leave, Liam replied immediately. Technology that could counter Taelon systems. They have interdimensional portals, energy weapons, and neural interfaces that make conventional resistance nearly impossible. Military support if the Taelons escalate to direct action against the resistance, and most importantly, he paused, clearly understanding the weight of what he was asking. We want you to expose the truth publicly. Demonstrate that Earth doesn't need Taelon guidance. Prove that humanity is capable of defending itself. You want us to start a war, Ronan observed. We want you to end an occupation, Marcus corrected. The war already started 3 years ago when the Taelons arrived and began infiltrating our governments. We've just been fighting it quietly, because open conflict would be labeled terrorism and give the Taelons justification for more aggressive control. Sheppard's radio crackled, McKay's voice cutting through from Atlantis. Sheppard, we've got a situation. Zo'or just transmitted a formal invitation for you to visit the Taelon mothership for diplomatic talks. He's being very insistent, and he's deployed what my sensors identify as some kind of energy barrier around Atlantis. We're not trapped. I can take the shield down easily, but it's a clear message that they're getting impatient. Understood. We're wrapping up here. Sheppard looked at Liam and his resistance team. I need time to verify what you've told us and discuss with my command staff. The decision to get involved in another universe's conflict isn't mine alone to make. We understand, Liam said, but understand this. The Taelons have already made their decision about you. Zo'or sees your city as salvation or threat to be eliminated. There is no neutral ground once they've decided you're relevant to their survival. You'll have to choose sides whether you want to or not. Sheppard and Ronan returned to Atlantis via ring transport, materializing in the gate room where Taelon was waiting with McKay and a tactical situation that had deteriorated in their absence. "Zo'or transmitted 3 more times while you were gone," Taelon reported. "Each message more insistent than the last." He claims to have detected concerning energy signatures from Atlantis that suggest our hyperdrive malfunction created dimensional instabilities requiring Taelon assistance to resolve. He's offering to send technical specialists to help, and he's made it clear that refusing would be unwise. Translation: he wants to get companions aboard Atlantis to assess our technology and potentially compromise our people with CVI implants, McKay added. "I've been analyzing Taelon communications protocols, and they're absolutely riddled with subliminal influence patterns. Their language includes harmonic frequencies, designed to make listeners more receptive to suggestion. It's psychological warfare, disguised as friendly conversation." Sheppard moved to the control room's main display, where tactical data showed the 3 Taelon motherships maintaining position around Atlantis, while the energy barrier McKay had mentioned pulsed with barely contained power. "Can we take them if this turns hostile?" "Easily," McKay replied with the confidence of someone who'd analyzed the technical specifications thoroughly. Taelon ships are advanced by Earth standards, but primitive compared to ancient technology. Our drone weapons would tear through their hulls like tissue paper. The problem isn't military victory, it's political fallout. If we destroy Taelon ships in Earth orbit, we become the aggressors in the eyes of billions of humans who believe the Taelons are benevolent allies. But if we allow them aboard Atlantis, they'll attempt to control us through CVI technology or sabotage our systems to prevent us from leaving. Taelon observed, "We're trapped between appearing aggressive and becoming compromised." Ronan checked his particle magnum. "Or we could just tell Zo'or the truth. We know about the death sleep, we know about the CVI, and we're not interested in becoming part of his collection of controlled humans. See how he responds when someone calls him out directly." It was a typically blunt run-on solution, but Sheppard found himself considering it seriously. The Taelons' entire strategy relied on maintaining their benevolent facade while manipulating from behind that mask. What happened when someone refused to play along? "I'm going to accept Zo'or's invitation," Sheppard decided. "But on my terms. Meeting happens on neutral ground, not his mothership, not Atlantis. Somewhere public, where any aggressive action would be witnessed. And I'm bringing evidence of what the CVI actually does to challenge his narrative directly. That's incredibly dangerous." McKay protested. "Zo'or could use Taelon technology to kill you, kidnap you, or implant you with CVI before you could react. You'd be walking into the enemy's stronghold with no backup. That's why I'm not going alone." Sheppard turned to Taelon. "I need you to coordinate with the Resistance. If this meeting goes bad, I want them ready to broadcast the truth about the Taelons publicly. Make it impossible for Zo'or to maintain the benevolent ally pretense." "And if the meeting goes well?" Taelon asked. "Then we negotiate our departure from this universe without getting involved in their war." Sheppard knew, even as he said it, that the option was unlikely. The Resistance was right. There was no neutral ground once the Taelons decided you were relevant to their survival. But I'm not betting on that outcome. Ronan, I want security teams on standby. If Zo'or tries to board Atlantis by force, you have authorization to use whatever force necessary to repel them. He pulled up the communications interface and opened a channel to the Taelon mothership, where Zo'or's luminescent form appeared, with the same carefully constructed benevolence that was starting to look more like a mask with every revelation. "Zo'or, this is Lieutenant Colonel Sheppard. I accept your invitation for talks. But the meeting happens on Earth's surface, in a public location, with media present to document our first formal diplomatic exchange. I'm sure you'll want Earth's population to witness this historic moment of cooperation between our peoples." Zo'or's expression flickered just for a moment with something that might have been frustration before the benevolent mask reasserted itself. Of course, Colonel. Transparency serves all parties. I will arrange a venue and inform Earth's media of this momentous occasion. Shall we say 6 hours from now? Perfect. Atlantis out. McKay stared at Sheppard like he'd lost his mind. You just challenged a dying alien species with mind control technology to a public debate about their occupation of Earth. You understand that's insane, right? Completely insane, Sheppard agreed. But it accomplishes 3 things. It forces Zo'or to operate in public, where using CVI or violence would expose his true nature. It gives the resistance an opportunity to present their evidence to a global audience. And it establishes that Atlantis isn't going to be manipulated like Earth's governments were. And if Zo'or has countermeasures we haven't anticipated, Taelon asked. Then we adapt and overcome, Sheppard replied, channeling every dangerous mission he'd survived through a combination of improvisation and stubbornness. We've fought Wraith Queens, Replicators, and Asurans. We can handle one dying alien trying to save his species through deception. On the Taelon mothership, Zo'or watched Atlantis's energy signature with the calculating assessment of someone who'd just been outmaneuvered but still held significant advantages. The human colonel was clever, using public scrutiny as protection, forcing transparency that undermined Taelon operational flexibility. But Zo'or had been manipulating human psychology for 3 years. He understood how to shape narrative, control perception, and make truth seem like conspiracy theory. Colonel Sheppard wanted a public confrontation. Zo'or would give him one. And when the Taelon Synod finished demonstrating their technological superiority and benevolent intentions, the Atlantis expedition would have 2 choices: cooperation or isolation. Either outcome served Taelon interests. And if the colonel proved too stubborn to accept reason, well, the CVI had proven remarkably effective at transforming skeptics into loyal companions. The death sleep was accelerating. Zo'or could feel his core energy dimming with each passing day. He would save his species, whatever the cost, even if it meant enslaving the very humans he claimed to partner with. The public meeting was 6 hours away, and both sides were preparing for a confrontation that would determine Earth's future and Atlantis' fate in this strange universe. The game had begun in earnest. The venue Zo'or selected for their public meeting was simultaneously brilliant and disturbing in its symbolism, the Washington Monument, standing as a testament to human achievement, while surrounded by Taelon energy platforms that demonstrated the aliens' technological superiority. McKay had analyzed the setup during the 6-hour preparation window and identified it as carefully staged theater. Taelon motherships positioned overhead in perfect formation, holographic displays ready to broadcast Zo'or's message to millions, and enough companions in the crowd to ensure any spontaneous public reaction would favor the Taelon narrative. Sheppard stood on the ancient transporter platform in Atlantis' gate room, checking his tactical vest one final time while his team provided final intelligence updates. He'd chosen to wear his military uniform rather than civilian clothes, a deliberate statement that Atlantis represented Earth's military tradition, not naive newcomers easily manipulated by alien promises. I've coordinated with Liam Kincaid, Taelon reported, her voice carrying concern that she was trying to hide behind professional composure. The Resistance has positioned observers throughout the crowd with recording equipment independent of Taelon-controlled networks. Whatever happens at this meeting will be documented from multiple perspectives. Zo'or's arranged for global broadcast through the companion media networks, McKay added, pulling up data streams on his tablet. Which means approximately 4 billion people will be watching this live. No pressure or anything, but you're about to become the most famous person in this universe's recent history. Great, Sheppard muttered. I always wanted to be a galactic celebrity. Ronan checked his particle magnum with the practiced motion of someone preparing for violence despite hoping for diplomacy. Security teams are on standby. If Zo'or tries anything, we can have a jumper to your position in 90 seconds. Just give the word, and we'll pull you out. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Sheppard turned to his team, the people who'd followed him through impossible situations and trusted his judgment even when the odds said they shouldn't. If this goes bad, priority 1 is protecting Atlantis. Don't let the Taelons aboard under any circumstances. McKay, if you detect any attempt to compromise our systems remotely, shut down external communications and raise the shield. Understood? Understood, McKay replied, though his expression showed he hated sending Sheppard into potential danger without better contingency plans. Though, for the record, I think this entire plan relies too heavily on Zo'or caring about public opinion enough not to just kill you and claim it was an unfortunate accident. Zo'or spent 3 years building the benevolent ally narrative. Sheppard countered. He won't destroy that unless he's absolutely desperate. The question is whether the death sleep has made him that desperate yet. He stepped onto the transporter platform, and the familiar sensation of ancient ring technology took him from Atlantis' control room to the National Mall in Washington, D.C., materializing him 50 meters from where Zo'or stood on a raised Taelon platform, surrounded by holographic displays and companion advisors. The crowd was massive. Thousands of people gathered to witness first contact between Earth and the mysterious city ship that had appeared in orbit. Sheppard's tactical awareness cataloged faces, showing everything from wonder to suspicion to carefully neutral expressions that suggested companion influence. News cameras from a dozen networks tracked his every movement, and the air itself seemed charged with the weight of history being made. Zo'or descended from the platform with movements that suggested floating rather than walking, the Taelons' luminescent form drawing gasps from the crowd that had grown accustomed to their presence but still found them alien and impressive. When Zo'or spoke, the words carried both audible sound and telepathic harmonics that made Sheppard's skin crawl with their subliminal influence patterns. "Colonel Sheppard," Zo'or said with perfectly modulated warmth, "on behalf of the Taelon Synod and the people of Earth, I welcome you and offer our friendship. Your arrival represents a momentous occasion, proof that humanity's potential extends beyond a single world, that the partnership between Taelons and humans can reach even further than we dreamed." The crowd responded with applause that sounded slightly too enthusiastic, too synchronized. Companions, Sheppard realized, scattered throughout the gathering to shape the reaction and make Zo'or's welcome seem universally embraced. "Thank you for the welcome," Sheppard replied, pitching his voice to carry without electronic amplification, a subtle demonstration that he didn't need Taelon technology to be heard. "Though I should clarify a few things about our arrival. We didn't come here intentionally. Our hyperdrive malfunctioned during intergalactic transit, and we're still trying to determine exactly what brought us to this Earth." He paused, letting that sink in. This Earth, implying there were others, suggesting the Taelons weren't the most advanced species in the multiverse. "Regardless of the circumstances," Zo'or continued smoothly, "your presence offers extraordinary opportunities for cooperation. Your vessel's technology is clearly beyond current human capability, perhaps even beyond Taelon understanding. Imagine what we could achieve together. Taelon knowledge, combined with ancient." The word carried slight emphasis, acknowledging Sheppard's earlier description, engineering. "We could elevate both our species to heights neither could reach alone." "That's a generous offer," Sheppard said, and he could feel the tension in the crowd as people sensed this wasn't going to be simple acceptance of Taelon friendship. "But before we discuss cooperation, I need to understand the nature of the Taelon presence on Earth. You've been here for 3 years, integrated into governments and corporations, sharing technology through what you call the Companion Program. Can you explain exactly how that program works?" Zo'or's expression showed the briefest flicker of calculation before the benevolent mask reasserted itself. The companion program is voluntary partnership between exceptional humans and the Taelon Synod. Selected individuals receive enhancement through CVI technology, cyber-viral implant that increases cognitive function, provides access to Taelon knowledge, and allows them to serve as bridges between our peoples. It's an honor that thousands have chosen to accept. Chosen, Sheppard repeated, letting the word hang. So anyone who becomes a companion does so with full understanding of what the CVI does to them? They know it's permanent? They understand it rewrites their neurology to make them incapable of acting against Taelon interests? The crowd's murmur suggested that particular detail wasn't common knowledge. Zo'or's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. The CVI creates perfect harmony between human and Taelon consciousness, Zo'or replied, his telepathic harmonics increasing slightly, attempting to make the explanation sound reasonable through subliminal influence. It eliminates the misunderstandings and conflicts that plague separate species. Companions become better versions of themselves, more capable, more enlightened, more aligned with the greater good. Better versions that can't choose to leave the program, Sheppard pressed. Better versions that believe they're operating with free will, while actually being neurologically incapable of questioning Taelon decisions. That's not partnership, Zo'or. That's slavery with better marketing. The companions in the crowd reacted with perfectly synchronized outrage-programmed responses that proved Sheppard's point more effectively than any argument. But the non-companion humans showed different reactions: shock, confusion, anger at being potentially deceived. The narrative was cracking. Zo'or's benevolent facade slipped further. Colonel Sheppard, you've been misinformed by elements that oppose progress and cooperation. The CVI is enhancement, not control. Companions are honored volunteers who can't remove the implant without dying. Sheppard interrupted, pulling a datapad from his tactical vest information. The Resistance had provided technical specifications of the CVI that Taelon-controlled media had never broadcast publicly. I've reviewed the medical data. The CVI integrates so completely with human neurology that attempting removal causes catastrophic brain damage. That's not voluntary when you can never choose to leave. He held up the datapad, and somehow, Liam Kincaid's work, Sheppard suspected the data, began broadcasting to the public screens that were supposed to be under Taelon control. Technical diagrams of CVI neural integration. Before and after brain scans showing personality modification. Testimony from companions' families describing how loved ones changed after receiving the implant. The crowd's reaction shifted from curiosity to genuine concern. News cameras that weren't under direct companion control zoomed in on the data, broadcasting it to millions of viewers who'd never seen this information before. Zo'or's composure cracked completely for 3 seconds. The Taelon's luminescent form flickered with what might have been anger or fear, and when the alien spoke again, the telepathic harmonics carried undercurrent of threat rather than benevolence. Colonel Sheppard, you are interfering with matters you don't understand. The Taelons came to Earth, offering salvation from self-destruction. We have shared technology that cured diseases, reversed environmental collapse, and elevated human civilization. We have asked for nothing except cooperation and the opportunity to help humanity reach its potential. And now you, a stranger from another world, presume to judge our methods and turn Earth's population against their benefactors? I presume to ask questions that Earth's population deserves answers to, Sheppard replied evenly. Like why the Taelons are so interested in human DNA. Why you're conducting experiments trying to merge Taelon and human genetics. Why a species that claims to want only cooperation is so desperate to acquire new biological material. The crowd's murmur became an uproar. That information definitely wasn't public knowledge. You're dying, Sheppard continued, and the words fell like an execution sentence. Your entire species is experiencing genetic collapse, called the death sleep. You came to Earth searching for a cure. And every piece of technology you've shared, every companion you've recruited, every experiment you've conducted, has been in service of that goal. Human cooperation isn't a partnership, it's a resource extraction operation. Zo'or stood absolutely still for 5 seconds while millions watched via broadcast. Then the Taelon's form seemed to solidify, becoming more physical and less ethereal. And when the alien spoke, all pretense of benevolence had vanished. "Yes," Zo'or said simply, "we are dying. The death sleep is destroying our species. We came to Earth because human genetics showed potential for compatibility with Taelon biology, a slim hope that we might find cure through partnership rather than face extinction. We have shared our knowledge freely because we believed cooperation would serve both species. If that makes us desperate survivors rather than benevolent saviors, so be it. But ask yourself, Colonel Sheppard, is survival through cooperation truly worse than extinction through pride?" It was a powerful argument, delivered with the raw honesty of someone who'd abandoned deception for desperate appeal. The crowd's reaction split immediately, some sympathizing with a dying species seeking survival, others horrified that they'd been manipulated by aliens hiding their true agenda. "Survival through cooperation would be acceptable," Sheppard replied carefully. "Survival through mind control and involuntary genetic experimentation is something else entirely. If the Taelons had arrived honestly, explained your situation, and asked for help, maybe Earth would have chosen to assist dying aliens. But you chose deception, control, and manipulation. You created companions who can't choose to leave. You infiltrated governments to prevent opposition. You presented partnership while actually establishing occupation." He paused, letting the accusation settle. "I've spent years fighting species that view humans as resources to be exploited. The Goa'uld claimed to be gods while enslaving populations. The Wraith fed on humans for 10,000 years. The Taelons are more subtle, but the fundamental dynamic is the same. Aliens using superior technology to control humans for alien benefit." "We are nothing like the parasites you describe," Zo'or countered, and there was genuine offense in the Taelon's voice. "We have never taken human life without cause. We have elevated Earth's civilization beyond what it could achieve alone. We seek partnership, not domination." "Then prove it," Sheppard challenged. "Remove the CVI from all companions who want to leave the program. Publicly release all data about the death sleep and your genetic experiments. Submit to transparent oversight from Earth governments that aren't controlled by companion influence. If you're truly partners rather than occupiers, give humans the choice you've been denying them." The crowd erupted into chaos, some cheering Sheppard's challenge, others shouting support for the Taelons, companions attempting to restore order while non-companion humans demanded answers. News cameras captured every moment, broadcasting Earth's first real confrontation with the alien species that had shaped 3 years of human history. Zo'or stood silently amid the uproar, the Taelon's luminescent form dimming slightly, as if the confrontation had drained energy reserves. When the alien finally spoke, the words carried weight of terrible calculation. "You have made your position clear, Colonel Sheppard. You will not cooperate with the Taelons. You will work to undermine our presence on Earth. You will turn humanity against the species that saved them from self-destruction." Zo'or's form solidified further, becoming almost threatening. "Very well. Let me make my position equally clear." The Taelon motherships overhead shifted position, their weapon systems powering up in displays, visible even to the crowd below. Sheppard's tactical awareness screamed warnings, even as his hand moved toward the emergency beacon that would summon Atlantis' transporters. "Atlantis represents technology that could cure the death sleep," Zo'or continued, his voice carrying across the National Mall through both audio and telepathic projection. "You possess knowledge the Taelons require for survival. I offered partnership. You rejected it. So I offer ultimatum instead. Surrender your city's ancient technology for analysis. Submit to cooperative research into the death-sleep cure, and accept Taelon guidance in exchange for safe passage home. Or refuse, and learn what happens when you interfere with a dying species' last hope for survival. The crowd froze, thousands of people suddenly understanding that they were witnessing not diplomatic exchange, but declaration of war. Sheppard's finger hovered over the emergency beacon, calculating odds and consequences. Activating it would bring Atlantis' weapons online, turn this confrontation into actual combat, with billions watching. But refusing Zo'or's ultimatum would likely result in the same outcome, with worse tactical positioning. You're threatening military action against a human expedition because we won't give you our technology voluntarily? Sheppard said, making sure every camera captured the moment. That's not partnership, Zo'or. That's extortion. And it proves everything I've said about the Taelons being occupiers rather than allies. Call it what you wish, Zo'or replied, and the alien's form had become fully physical, now threatening rather than ethereal. But understand that the Taelon Synod will not allow your interference to cause our species' extinction. You have 12 hours to accept my offer. After that, we will take what we require by force. And Earth's governments will support us, because they understand that Taelon survival serves human interests better than conflict with a dying species desperate enough to do anything for salvation. The Taelon leader turned and began ascending toward the platform where a portal would return him to the mothership overhead. But he paused, looking back at Sheppard with expression that mixed desperation and determination. You judged us harshly, Colonel, called us manipulators and occupiers. Perhaps you're correct. Perhaps desperate survival has made us into something we never intended to become. But before you condemn the Taelons completely, Zo'or's voice softened slightly. Ask yourself what you would do if your species faced extinction. What lines you would cross. What compromises you would make. Then decide whether our methods are truly monstrous or simply the actions of beings who refuse to die quietly. The Taelon disappeared through the portal, leaving Sheppard standing amid thousands of humans who were just beginning to understand that they'd been living under occupation disguised as partnership. Liam Kincaid materialized from the crowd, his resistance credentials no longer a secret that needed hiding. That went well, he said with dark humor. You've successfully exposed the Taelons' true nature, turned public opinion against their occupation, and got Earth threatened with alien invasion. Standard Tuesday for you? Pretty much, Sheppard replied, activating his radio. McKay, tell me you got all that. Every word, McKay's voice came back, tension evident. And Sheppard, Zo'or wasn't bluffing. The motherships are powering weapons, and I'm detecting increased Taelon portal activity planetside. They're mobilizing companions and military assets. You've got maybe 6 hours before they try to take Atlantis by force, not 12. Then we'd better use those 6 hours wisely. Sheppard looked at Liam. You wanted Atlantis to help liberate Earth from Taelon occupation. Congratulations. You just got your wish. Now we need to figure out how to win a war against dying aliens. With mind control technology, energy weapons, and the desperate belief that our city ship is their species' last hope for survival. No pressure, Liam replied. Never is, Sheppard agreed. And as news broadcasts carried footage of the confrontation to billions of viewers across Earth, the Taelon occupation that had lasted 3 years began its transformation into open conflict. The war for Earth and Atlantis' survival had begun. The 6 hours Zo'or had promised compressed into a frantic race against Taelon preparation and humanity's sudden awakening to 3 years of subtle occupation. Sheppard transported back to Atlantis to find the control room transformed into a war planning center, with McKay coordinating sensor analysis, Taelon managing communications with resistance cells across the planet, and Ronan overseeing security teams, preparing for potential boarding actions. Status report, Sheppard ordered, moving to the central tactical display, where holographic representations of Earth and the 3 Taelon motherships painted a strategic picture that was both encouraging and terrifying. The good news is that your public confrontation worked, McKay said, pulling up global communication intercepts. Social media is exploding with people questioning the Taelons for the first time in 3 years. Government officials who aren't companions are demanding transparency. Several major news networks that maintained independence from companion control are broadcasting the CVI medical data and asking very uncomfortable questions about informed consent. And the bad news? Sheppard prompted. The bad news is that Zo'or has activated what my analysis identifies as Taelon emergency protocols, McKay replied, highlighting energy signatures across Earth's surface. Companion-controlled military units are mobilizing. Taelon interdimensional portals are deploying energy weapons to strategic locations, and the motherships have established a defensive perimeter that suggests they're preparing for either assault on Atlantis or defense against counterattack. Taela pulled up communication intercepts from the resistance networks. Liam Kincaid reports that companion-infiltrated governments are declaring martial law in several countries, claiming terrorist activity and anti-Taelon extremism require emergency measures. The official narrative is that Colonel Sheppard's accusations were baseless conspiracy theories designed to undermine Earth-Taelon partnership. Except the medical data is real. The CVI specifications are documented, and 4 billion people watched Zo'or admit that Taelons are dying and came to Earth seeking genetic compatibility, Sheppard countered. They can't put that genie back in the bottle. No, but they can suppress dissent through companion-controlled security forces, Ronan observed from his position monitoring defensive systems. And if martial law gives them authority to arrest extremists, they can CVI implant opposition leaders before public opinion fully turns against them. It was a chillingly effective strategy. Use the confusion following the revelation to consolidate control, eliminate opposition through forced implantation, and present it as necessary security measures against dangerous radicals. The Taelons had spent 3 years building the infrastructure for exactly this kind of response. How long before they move against Atlantis directly? Sheppard asked. McKay pulled up predictive models based on Taelon energy signatures and deployment patterns. 4 hours? Maybe 5. They're positioning assets for coordinated assault. Motherships will provide orbital bombardment, while companion ground forces attempt boarding via interdimensional portal. They can't afford a prolonged siege, because every hour we remain free is another hour for resistance movements to organize and public opinion to solidify against them. Can we defend against a coordinated assault? Sheppard pressed. Militarily? Absolutely, McKay replied with the confidence of someone who'd analyzed ancient weapon systems thoroughly. Our drone weapons can destroy all 3 motherships in under 10 minutes. Our shield can withstand anything their energy weapons can generate. And our transporters can repel any boarding action before it establishes a foothold. He paused, and his expression showed the complication. But politically, if we destroy Taelon ships in Earth orbit with billions watching, we become the aggressors. Zo'or will spin it as proof that Atlantis is the real threat, and companion-controlled governments will declare us hostile invaders. It was the same trap they'd faced with Queen Seraph's modern wraith, winning the military engagement while losing the moral argument. Except this time, the audience was Earth's entire population watching in real time through global media networks. Then we don't destroy the motherships, Sheppard decided. We disable them, take out weapons and propulsion systems without killing Taelon crews. Demonstrate that we can defend ourselves without committing the aggression Zo'or's narrative requires. That's significantly more difficult than simple destruction, McKay protested. It requires precision strikes against specific systems while their shields are active. and they're actively trying to kill us. The margin for error is acceptable, Sheppard interrupted. Because the alternative is letting the Taelons take Atlantis by force, which serves nobody's interests except Zo'or's desperate search for a death-sleep cure. Taylor's communication console activated with an incoming transmission, heavily encrypted and routed through multiple relays to disguise its origin. When she isolated the signal, Liam Kincaid's face appeared on the view screen with an expression that mixed urgency and opportunity. Colonel Sheppard, the Resistance has actionable intelligence. We've identified the location of the Taelon Central CVI control facility. It's where they manufacture the implants, monitor companion neural integration, and maintain override protocols for emergency situations. If we could neutralize that facility, we'd disrupt their ability to create new companions and potentially free existing ones from the most invasive control protocols. Sheppard felt his tactical assessment shift. What kind of defenses are we talking about? Heavy, Liam admitted. The facility is in a secure location beneath what used to be the Pentagon, protected by companion security forces and Taelon energy barriers. Conventional assault would fail. But if Atlantis could provide transport capability and technology to penetrate the barriers, he let the implication hang. You want us to help you raid a Taelon military facility and destroy their mind control infrastructure? McKay summarized, while simultaneously defending against orbital assault from 3 motherships, just checking that I understand the tactical insanity correctly. It's an opportunity, Ronan countered. Hit them while they're preparing to hit us. They won't expect offensive action from a force that's supposedly just defending itself. Sheppard studied the tactical display, running scenarios through his mind with the speed of someone who'd spent years making these kinds of impossible choices. The CVI facility was a legitimate military target. Destroying the Taelons' ability to create new mind-controlled servants would significantly degrade their control infrastructure. But it also meant inserting Atlantis personnel into Earth-based combat operations, in a universe where they were already controversial. What's the Resistance's capability for this kind of operation? Sheppard asked Liam directly. We have trained operatives' weapons and intelligence about the facility's layout, Liam replied. What we don't have is the technology to penetrate Taelon energy barriers, or the firepower to overcome companion security without significant casualties. Your ancient transporters could insert a strike team directly inside the facility's perimeter, bypassing external defenses. Your weapons could disable Taelon systems that our conventional arms can't affect. It was a reasonable request for assistance from allies fighting an occupation. It was also asking Atlantis to commit to active combat operations on a planet where billions of people still weren't sure whether the Taelons were benevolent partners or manipulative occupiers. Colonel, Taela said quietly, her diplomatic instincts recognizing the larger implications. If we assist the Resistance in destroying the CVI facility, we're choosing sides in this conflict permanently. There will be no possibility of negotiated withdrawal or neutral departure. We become combatants in Earth's war for liberation from Taelon control. We became combatants the moment I exposed Zo'or's manipulation publicly, Sheppard replied. The Taelons have already decided we're enemies. The question is whether we fight defensively and hope they eventually give up, or we fight offensively and help Earth actually win its freedom. McKay pulled up analysis of the CVI facility's technical specifications that Liam had transmitted. If we're going to do this, and I'm not saying we should, but if the timing needs to be precise, we hit the facility exactly when the Taelons launch their assault on Atlantis. Split their focus. Force them to defend assets they thought were secure and create chaos in their command structure during the critical phase of their operation. Agreed, Sheppard said, making the command decision that would commit Atlantis to war in another universe. Liam, we'll provide transport and technical support for the CVI facility raid. But the Resistance provides the ground team. We can't spare personnel for simultaneous operations while defending Atlantis. Understood, Liam replied. We'll be ready when you give the signal. The transmission ended, leaving Sheppard alone with his team and the weight of choices that couldn't be unmade. He'd spent 8 months in Pegasus making similar decisions. When to fight, when to negotiate, when to commit to battles that weren't originally his responsibility. But this felt different. More personal, somehow. This was Earth, maybe not his Earth, but close enough that defending it against alien occupation felt less like foreign intervention and more like fundamental duty. There's one more factor we need to consider, McKay said, pulling up sensor data that painted a concerning picture. I've been analyzing the Taelon energy signatures more closely, and the death sleep is accelerating faster than Zo'or probably realizes. The mothership crews are experiencing cellular degradation at rates suggesting they have weeks, not months. The Taelons aren't just desperate, they're dying in real time, and they know it, which makes them more dangerous, Ronan observed. Dying predators fight harder, make more aggressive moves, take risks they wouldn't accept if they had time to wait. Exactly, McKay confirmed. Zo'or's ultimatum wasn't strategic positioning for negotiation. It was genuine last chance before species extinction. The Taelons will do anything to acquire Atlantis' technology because we represent their final hope. That means they'll commit everything to the assault. Full force, maximum aggression, and no restraint about collateral damage. Sheppard processed that information with growing understanding of how terrible this battle was going to be. Not a careful probe or measured escalation, but desperate all-or-nothing assault by beings who believed their species' survival depended on victory. He'd faced similar situations during the Wraith siege of Atlantis, when culling operations turned into existential threats that required total commitment. Then we matched their commitment, Sheppard decided. McKay, I want every defensive system online and optimized. Ancient weapons, shield generators, sensor arrays, everything operating at maximum efficiency. Ronan, brief all security teams on Taelon boarding tactics and energy weapon characteristics. I want everyone ready for simultaneous defense against orbital assault and interdimensional infiltration. He turned to Taela. You're coordinating with the resistance ground teams. When we give the signal for the CVI facility raid, I need perfect timing. The strike has to happen exactly when the Taelons are focused on Atlantis, or they'll have assets to defend their critical infrastructure. Understood, Taela replied. Though I must note that we're undertaking military operations in a universe where we don't fully understand the political dynamics or long-term consequences of our actions. I know, Sheppard acknowledged, but the Taelons made the choice for us when they issued their ultimatum. We can either fight for Earth's freedom or surrender Atlantis' technology to save a dying species that's built its survival strategy on enslaving humans. I've made those calculations before, during the retrovirus decision with the Wraith. This time, at least the math is clearer. The next 3 hours transformed Atlantis from exploration vessel into fortress preparing for siege. Security teams established defensive positions at every major access point. McKay implemented sensor protocols to detect Taelon interdimensional portals before they could establish stable transport corridors. Taela coordinated resistance movements across Earth, turning scattered cells into coordinated strike force, ready to exploit the chaos of Atlantis' defense. And Sheppard stood in the chair room, interfacing with the ancient control systems that had saved Atlantis countless times before, preparing to use 10,000-year-old weapons to defend Earth in a universe that wasn't his own. The tactical display showed the Taelon motherships adjusting position, their weapon systems charging with energy signatures that suggested imminent attack. Companion ground forces were mobilizing around the world, deploying to strategic locations where Taelon portals could insert them directly into combat zones. Sheppard, I'm detecting massive energy spike from all 3 motherships. McKay's voice came through the chair's audio interface. They're coordinating for simultaneous strike. This is it, they're coming. All stations, weapons free. Sheppard transmitted across Atlantis' communication network. Defend the city. Protect Earth. And remember, we disable. We don't destroy. Let's show the Taelons that humanity doesn't need salvation from dying gods desperate to survive by enslaving another species. The chair's neural interface connected with his mind, and suddenly Sheppard could feel the ancient drones waiting in their launch tubes, could sense the city's shield generators humming with barely contained power, could perceive the 3 Taelon motherships preparing their final desperate assault. Signal the resistance, Sheppard ordered. Hit the CVI facility now. On Earth's surface, Liam Kincaid's strike teams materialized via Atlantis' transporters directly inside the Taelon CVI manufacturing facility's perimeter, bypassing security that had been designed to stop conventional infiltration. The Resistance had 3 minutes to reach the central processing core before companion reinforcements could respond. In orbit above Earth, the 3 Taelon motherships opened fire simultaneously, their energy weapons converging on Atlantis' position, with the desperate fury of a dying species making its final stand. And in the ancient chair, Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard felt the city respond to the attack, felt the shield absorb the impact, felt the drone weapons launching to defend Earth against aliens who'd spent 3 years claiming to be its saviors. The battle for Earth had begun in earnest. And this time, humanity would fight back with 10,000-year-old technology and the stubborn refusal to accept slavery disguised as partnership. The Taelons wanted Atlantis' ancient knowledge to cure their death sleep. They were about to learn that some things were worth dying for, and freedom was at the top of that list. The Taelon energy weapons struck Atlantis' shield with the force of concentrated stellar output, and even through the ancient chair's neural interface, Sheppard felt the impact as the city's systems strained to absorb terawatts of destructive power. The shield held ancient technology built to withstand far worse than anything the Taelons could generate, but the coordinated assault from 3 motherships simultaneously was exactly the kind of sustained bombardment that would eventually drain even a ZPM's reserves. Shield at 92%, McKay reported from the control room, his voice carrying the tension of someone watching power reserves deplete in real time. They're rotating firing patterns to prevent our shield from regenerating between strikes, tactically competent for dying aliens. At current drain rate, we've got maybe 6 hours before the ZPM hits critical levels. 6 hours was an eternity in combat terms, but it also meant that Taelons were committed to siege warfare rather than quick victory. Zo'or was betting that Atlantis would surrender the city's technology before the shield failed completely, a calculation that showed the Taelon leader still didn't understand who he was fighting. Launch drones, Sheppard ordered, his mind interfacing with the ancient weapons systems through the chair's neural connection. Target the mothership's primary weapons arrays. Precision strikes. I want those ships disabled, not destroyed. The ancient drones erupted from Atlantis' launch tubes in a golden swarm, their self-guided systems responding to Sheppard's mental commands with the precision of thought made manifest. Each drone was a masterwork of ancient engineering, faster than conventional missiles, more maneuverable than fighters, and equipped with warheads that could penetrate shields through exotic physics that McKay still didn't fully understand. The first wave struck the lead Taelon mothership's weapons emplacements with surgical accuracy, exotic matter warheads detonating against energy projectors and disabling them without breaching the ship's hull. The second wave targeted propulsion systems, crippling the vessel's ability to maneuver while leaving life support and command systems intact. The third wave performed the same precise dismantlement on the other 2 motherships. Within 90 seconds, all 3 Taelon capital ships hung dead in space weapons offline, propulsion disabled, but crews alive, and shields still functional enough to prevent catastrophic decompression. Motherships neutralized, Sheppard reported, feeling the chair's systems confirm successful targeting. They can maintain life support and shields, but their combat ineffective. McKay, Status on boarding attempts? Detecting multiple interdimensional portal signatures forming around the city's perimeter, McKay replied. His sensors tracking Taelon technology that operated on principles different from ancient systems, but equally advanced. They're attempting simultaneous insertion at 12 locations. Zo'or is trying to overwhelm our defenses through multiple breach points. Ronan, you're up. Sheppard transmitted to the security teams, positioned throughout Atlantis. The Cetadan warrior's voice came back with the calm certainty of someone who'd spent 7 years fighting superior forces through tactical cunning. Security teams are in position. Let them come. The Taelon portals materialized as shimmering energy barriers that tore holes in reality itself, and through them poured companion security forces, humans wearing combat armor and carrying Taelon energy weapons. Their movements, showing the perfect coordination that CVI neural control provided. But perfection had a weakness: predictability. The companions executed textbook tactical formations because the CVI made them incapable of improvisation. Ronan's teams exploited that limitation ruthlessly. Ancient stun grenades deployed at portal entry points, disrupting the companions' coordination. Atlantis' internal sensors predicted their movements based on standard military doctrine, allowing security personnel to establish ambush positions. And when direct combat became necessary, the expedition's P-90S and ancient weapons proved superior to Taelon energy rifles, designed more for intimidation than actual warfare. Repelling boarding attempts on all fronts, Ronan reported 30 minutes into the engagement. Companions are disciplined but inflexible. They keep trying the same approaches even when they fail. We're containing them to peripheral sections and slowly pushing them back toward the portals. On Earth's surface, Liam Kincaid's resistance strike team had penetrated to the CVI manufacturing facility's central core, a massive chamber filled with biological processing equipment that created the neural implants from a combination of Taelon technology and harvested human genetic material. The sight made even hardened resistance fighters pause in revulsion. Thousands of CVI units growing in organic vats, their neural interfaces pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that suggested living tissue rather than mechanical components. Set the charges, Liam ordered, his team deploying ancient-derived explosives that McKay had modified specifically to destroy Taelon biotechnology without causing structural collapse that would kill the companion workers still inside the facility. We've got 2 minutes before reinforcements breach our perimeter. The resistance demolitions expert, a former Army engineer named Sarah Chen, placed shaped charges with the precision of someone who understood exactly how much explosive force the facility's structure could withstand. Charges set. Detonation in 90 seconds. On your mark. Liam activated his communication link to Atlantis. Strike team to Colonel Sheppard. We're in position and ready for extraction. Charges are armed. Copy that. Sheppard's voice came back, strained by the chair's neural interface. Extracting in 60 seconds. Be ready for transport. But before Liam could acknowledge, the facility's emergency lighting shifted to hostile red, and a voice he'd hoped never to hear again echoed through the chamber, Zo'or's telepathic projection, carrying across distance through Taelon technology that operated on principles beyond conventional physics. Liam Kincaid, the Taelon leader's voice resonated with mixture of disappointment and determination. I had hoped you would understand our necessity. The CVI facility represents our species' last hope to create enough companions to maintain order while we search for the death-sleep cure. Destroying it condemns the Taelons to extinction and Earth to chaos as our control infrastructure collapses. Liam felt his finger hover over the detonation trigger, torn between completing the mission and the terrible weight of Zo'or's words. The Taelon wasn't wrong. Destroying the CVI facility would cripple their ability to create new mind-controlled servants, but it would also destabilize the governance structures they'd spent 3 years building. The collapse could be catastrophic. But Sarah Chen's voice cut through his hesitation with the clarity of someone who'd watched her sister receive the CVI and become a perfectly loyal stranger. They're already dying, Liam. The death sleep is killing them whether we destroy this facility or not. All we're doing is making sure they don't drag humanity down with them by turning everyone into companions. She was right. The CVI facility wasn't about saving the Taelons, it was about controlling humans, while the aliens desperately searched for survival. And that made it a legitimate target regardless of Zo'or's appeals to sympathy. Detonate the charges, Liam ordered. Atlantis. We need extraction now. End quote. The ancient transporters pulled the resistance team out of the facility milliseconds before Sarah's explosives detonated in a carefully calibrated sequence that collapsed the organic vats, destroyed the neural processing equipment, and rendered the entire CVI manufacturing infrastructure inoperable. The explosion vented through emergency systems rather than collapsing the building, minimizing casualties among the companion workers who'd been operating under neural control. On Atlantis, Sheppard felt the chair's sensors confirm the resistance team's successful extraction, even as the tactical situation shifted dramatically. The 3 disabled Taelon motherships were broadcasting emergency distress signals. Their companion forces were withdrawing from Atlantis through interdimensional portals and across Earth's surface. Resistance movements were launching coordinated strikes against Taelon installations, now that the CVI facility could no longer create reinforcements. The Taelons are retreating, McKay reported, with surprise evident in his voice. All their ground forces pulling back, motherships requesting ceasefire, and Zo'or is transmitting. It's a surrender request? No, wait, it's a negotiation request. He wants to talk. Sheppard felt the chair's connection to Atlantis' systems, felt the city's weapons still tracking the disabled motherships, felt the power reserves that could destroy the Taelon vessels completely if he chose. But he also felt something else, the weight of having already become what he'd accused Zo'or of being. Someone willing to do terrible things to achieve necessary goals. Open a channel, Sheppard ordered, releasing the chair's neural interface and standing to face the view screen, where Zo'or's holographic form materialized. The Taelon leader looked diminished somehow, the luminescent glow that had seemed so impressive during their first meeting now flickering like dying embers. "You have won, Colonel Sheppard," Zo'or said, and there was no deception in the alien's voice, just exhausted recognition of defeat. "Our motherships are disabled. Our CVI facility is destroyed. Our ability to maintain control over Earth's governance has been effectively eliminated. We are dying aliens with no cure for the death sleep and no means to compel the cooperation we require for survival." The Taelon paused, and when the alien continued, something like regret colored the telepathic harmonics. "I condemned your methods when you exposed our desperation publicly. I called you interfering and presumptuous. But watching you fight, watching you disable rather than destroy, watching you extract the resistance team without causing unnecessary casualties, watching you defend Earth with precision that minimized death, even among companions who were trying to kill you." Zo'or's form flickered. "Perhaps I understand now why the ancients who built your city chose to ascend rather than rule. Power wielded with restraint requires wisdom we Taelons never achieved." Sheppard studied the dying alien with the analytical assessment of someone who'd spent years fighting manipulative species. Zo'or could be executing one final deception, appealing to mercy, while positioning for another assault. But the Taelon's energy signature was failing visibly. The mothership's crews were broadcasting genuine distress as the death sleep accelerated, and Earth's resistance movements were already moving to secure facilities that companions had abandoned. The Taelons had lost. Not through military defeat, they could probably regroup and continue fighting, but through loss of narrative control. The occupation that had worked for 3 years because humans believed the Taelons were benevolent had collapsed the moment that belief shattered. "What are you proposing?" Sheppard asked carefully. "Asylum. Zo'or replied, and the word carried weight of absolute desperation. The Taelon Synod requests refuge aboard Atlantis, while we search for alternative solutions to the death sleep. We offer complete transparency, full disclosure of our technology, our biology, our history. We place ourselves at your mercy, because we have nowhere else to go, and nothing left to bargain with, except the knowledge that we are sentient beings facing extinction. You're asking us to save the species that spent 3 years enslaving Earth through mind control? McKay's voice cut in over the communication channel. Actually, I don't even have words for how insane that is. I know, Zo'or acknowledged. We manipulated your species. We created companions, without full disclosure of the CVI's permanence. We positioned ourselves as saviors, while actually being desperate survivors, willing to compromise human freedom for Taelon survival. By any measure, we are undeserving of mercy. The Taelon's luminescence dimmed further, and Sheppard could see the death sleep actively progressing, the alien's form becoming less solid, more ethereal, as cellular structures failed. But we are also proof that even manipulative occupation can end without genocide. We surrendered rather than fighting to extinction. We are offering cooperation rather than continued conflict. And we represent knowledge about ascension, energy-based biology, and dimensional physics that your expedition's scientists would find valuable. It was a calculated appeal offering scientific knowledge in exchange for asylum, and it might even be genuine. But it was also asking Atlantis to harbor the species that had occupied Earth, to provide sanctuary to beings who'd enslaved humans through neural control, to show mercy to aliens whose desperation had made them into exactly the kind of threat Sheppard had spent years fighting. Colonel, Taylor's voice came through with diplomatic precision. This decision has implications beyond immediate tactical concerns. If we grant asylum to the Taelons, we take responsibility for their presence in this universe. If we refuse, we potentially condemn them to extinction when we have the capability to prevent it. There is no option that avoids moral complexity. Sheppard looked at the tactical display showing disabled motherships, surrendering companions, and resistance movements securing Earth's freedom from 3 years of occupation. He thought about Queen Seraph's modern wraith, who'd allied with humanity and died from the retrovirus Chief had deployed. He thought about the constant calculations of who deserved survival and who deserved extinction. We'll grant temporary asylum, Sheppard decided. The Taelon Synod can remain aboard Atlantis under strict conditions: complete disarmament, full transparency about the death sleep, and all previous activities on Earth, and cooperation with Earth authorities who want to understand what was done to their population. In exchange, McKay and our medical team will analyze the death sleep and attempt to find a cure that doesn't require enslaving another species. Zo'or's form brightened slightly, not restored but stabilized by hope. You would help us? After everything we've done? I'm helping dying refugees who surrendered rather than fighting to extinction, Sheppard corrected. Whether the Taelons deserve that help is a question for philosophers. But I'm a soldier, and soldiers make tactical decisions based on outcomes rather than moral purity. Helping you find a cure that doesn't involve CVI enslavement serves everyone's interests better than leaving you to die while taking Earth down with you. He paused, making sure Zo'or understood the limitations. But this is temporary asylum while we search for solutions. We're not staying in this universe permanently, and when Atlantis leaves, the Taelons come with us or find their own way forward. Earth's freedom from occupation isn't negotiable. Understood and accepted, Zo'or replied. We will comply with all conditions. And Colonel Sheppard, thank you. You have shown mercy to beings who showed your species none. Perhaps that is the difference between those who deserve to survive and those who simply refuse to die. The transmission ended, leaving Sheppard alone with his team, and the weight of having just granted asylum to the species that had occupied Earth for 3 years. "Did we just adopt a bunch of dying aliens?" McKay asked incredulously. "Temporarily," Sheppard replied. "Until we find them a cure or find our way home, whichever comes first. And if Earth's resistance movements object to us harboring their former occupiers, then we explain that mercy doesn't mean forgetting or forgiving. It just means refusing to commit genocide when alternatives exist." Sheppard moved toward the control room, where Liam Kincaid's face appeared on the view screen, the resistance leader's expression showing complex mixture of relief and concern. "Colonel Sheppard, the Taelons are withdrawing from all Earth installations," Liam reported. "Companions are beginning to experience CVI degradation as the central facility's control network collapses. We're seeing personality reassertion. In some cases, people remembering who they were before the implant. It's chaotic, but it's freedom." "And the Taelon asylum?" Sheppard asked. "How does the resistance feel about us harboring Zo'or aboard Atlantis?" Liam was silent for 3 seconds. Then, "Honestly, mixed. Some want them dead for what they did. Others recognize that dying refugees aren't the same threat as occupying manipulators. Most are just glad the occupation is over and willing to let philosophers debate the morality of mercy toward former enemies." "That's all we can ask for," Sheppard replied. "The Taelons surrendered, Earth is free, and we've got temporary guests while McKay figures out how to cure a genetic disease that's killing an entire species. Could be worse. Could be better," Liam countered. "But yeah, could definitely be worse." As Taelon personnel began transferring to Atlantis under escort by security teams, and McKay started analyzing death-sleep biology with the fascination of someone who'd found a scientific puzzle worth solving, Sheppard stood at the city's edge and watched Earth rotate beneath them. They'd arrived by accident, gotten involved in an occupation, started a war, and ended it by offering asylum to the occupiers. Just another day for the Atlantis expedition. And somewhere in the multiverse, Sheppard suspected someone was laughing at the absurdity of it all. 3 weeks into the Taelon asylum arrangement, McKay had transformed Atlantis's primary medical lab into what he described as the most fascinating biological puzzle since we discovered the ancients could ascend, and everyone else described as Rodney obsessed with dying aliens again. The Taelon biological samples covered every available surface energy signature analysis, cellular degradation models, genetic sequencing that revealed how fundamentally different their species was from carbon-based humanity. The death sleep isn't a disease in the conventional sense, McKay explained to Sheppard during one of the mandatory progress briefings. It's more like catastrophic systems failure across their entire energy-based biology. The Taelons evolved from beings called the Chimera, a species that achieved something similar to ancient ascension, but through different mechanisms. They became energy beings, but unlike the ancients, who transcended physical form completely, the Taelons remained partially corporeal. He pulled up holographic models that showed Taelon biology in exquisite detail networks of energy pathways that maintained coherent physical form through mechanisms McKay's instruments could barely measure. The problem is that their energy matrix is degrading. It's like their biological batteries are running down and they've lost the ability to recharge. Without external energy input, they'll dissolve into incoherent energy patterns within months. Complete species extinction. Sheppard studied the data with the analytical focus of someone who'd made promises to help and needed to know if those promises could be kept. Can you fix it? That's the complicated part, McKay replied, pulling up comparative analysis between Taelon and ancient biology. The ancients solved this exact problem through ascension. They completed the transition to pure energy beings, which made them self-sustaining. The Taelons are stuck in an intermediate state, where they need physical anchoring, but their energy matrix is failing. Zo'or thought human DNA might provide that anchor, because humans evolved from chimera-influenced genetics millions of years ago. But the CVI didn't work as intended, Sheppard observed. No, because the Taelons approached it as genetic compatibility problem when it's actually an energy matrix stabilization challenge. McKay's excitement was building the tone of someone who'd found a solution to its stabline. Impossible parameters. But here's where it gets interesting. The ancients left extensive documentation about ascension mechanics in Atlantis's database. Not the mystical achieve enlightenment nonsense, but actual technical specifications for transitioning between energy states. He highlighted sections of ancient text that glowed with the characteristic blue of active database entries. If I can adapt ancient ascension principles to Taelon biology, I might be able to stabilize their energy matrix without requiring human DNA integration. It would essentially complete their evolution into energy beings, make them fully self-sustaining like the ancients achieved. You're talking about forcing an entire species to ascend, Sheppard said carefully. The ancients considered that a choice individual beings made after achieving enlightenment. You're proposing it as medical treatment. The alternative is extinction, McKay countered. And the ancients' philosophical approach to ascension doesn't change the underlying mechanics. Whether you achieve it through meditation or medical intervention, the result is the same. Transition from partially corporeal to fully energy-based existence. Sheppard considered the implications, while McKay's data continued painting pictures of Taelon biology and ancient knowledge converging toward potential solution. Would this cure preserve Taelon consciousness, personality, or would they become something completely different? Unknown, McKay admitted. The ancient database has examples of successful ascension, but those were individuals who chose the transition, forcing an entire species through the process simultaneously. There's no precedent. They might emerge as the same beings in new form, or they might become something the Taelons wouldn't recognize as themselves. So the cure might kill them as effectively as the death sleep, just in a different way. Or it might save them and elevate them to a level of existence the Taelons have been seeking since the Chimera first achieved energy-based biology. McKay pulled up the final analysis. I'm ready to present the option to Zo'or, but Sheppard, this is your call. You granted them asylum. You made the promise to search for solutions. Do we offer them a cure that might destroy who they are to save what they might become? Before Sheppard could answer, alarms erupted across Atlantis' systems, and Taylor's urgent voice cut through the communication network. Colonel, we're detecting massive energy disturbance approaching from outside the solar system. It's not Taelon technology. The signature is completely different, and it's moving fast. Sheppard ran for the control room, where the tactical display showed something that made his blood run cold. Dozens of energy signatures entering the solar system at velocities that exceeded any technology he'd encountered, except ancient ships. The vessels were pure energy constructs, no physical hulls, just coherent force held in ship-like configurations through principles his sensors couldn't fully analyze. Those are Jeridian commonality warships. Zo'or's voice came from behind Sheppard, the Taelon leader having apparently detected the same energy signatures. The alien's luminescent form had dimmed further over the past 3 weeks, the death sleep progressing despite McKay's best efforts to slow the degradation. They are our ancient enemies, beings who evolved from the same chimera origin as Taelons, but chose a different evolutionary path. Where we maintained partial corporeality, they became fully energy-based. Where we sought cooperation with corporeal species, they view physical beings as inferior. And they're coming here because? Ronan asked, his particle magnum already in hand, despite the fact that energy beings in space were far outside its engagement range. Because the Jeridians have spent millennia trying to exterminate the Taelons. Zo'or replied with the exhausted tone of someone recounting ancient conflicts that had defined his species' existence. They see us as evolutionary failures, beings who refuse to complete the transition to pure energy. Our death sleep would normally be their victory, but our presence aboard Atlantis, with access to ancient technology, the Taelons' form flickered with something like fear. They will view this as existential threat. Taelons gaining ancient knowledge could tip the balance of our eternal war. "How many ships are we looking at?" Sheppard demanded, watching the tactical display update as more Juridian vessels emerged from whatever FTL method they used. McKay ran the sensor analysis with frantic speed. 37 confirmed contacts and more, arriving every minute. Energy output suggests they're significantly more powerful than the Taelon motherships we disabled. And Sheppard? They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies, audio, telepathic, and some kind of energy-based communication we can barely detect. It's essentially an ultimatum. "Let me guess," Sheppard said. "Surrender the Taelons? Or face destruction?" "Close," McKay replied, pulling up the translation algorithms that were parsing the Juridian communication. "It's more like, surrender the evolutionary failures and the ancient technology, or we will sterilize your planet and reduce your primitive city to its component atoms." They're not big on diplomatic niceties. Taylor pulled up additional sensor data that painted an even more concerning picture. "Colonel, I'm detecting Juridian energy signatures manifesting on Earth's surface. They're not just threatening orbital bombardment, they're deploying ground forces to major population centers. This appears to be coordinated invasion, not simple military strike." On the view screen, a Juridian representative materialized pure energy given vaguely humanoid form, but fundamentally alien in ways that made even Zo'or's Taelon appearance seem familiar by comparison. When it spoke, the words bypassed audio entirely and projected directly into the minds of everyone in the control room. "Corporeal beings of the ancient vessel, you harbor evolutionary failures who seek to corrupt ancient knowledge for their desperate survival. The Juridian commonality cannot permit Taelon access to ascension technology. Surrender Zo'or and his refugees. Surrender your ancient databases, or face cleansing that will erase your species from this reality. You have one Earth rotation to comply." The transmission cut off, leaving the control room in shocked silence. Sheppard looked at Zo'or, whose luminescent form had dimmed to barely visible levels. "I assume you have some insight into Juridian capabilities?" "They are everything the Taelons aspire to be," Zo'or replied quietly. "Pure energy beings unbound by physical limitations, capable of manipulating matter and energy through will alone, possessing technology that makes Taelon systems look primitive. We fought them for millennia and never achieved victory, only stalemate maintained through mutual exhaustion." "Can Atlantis' weapons affect them?" Ronan asked the practical question. McKay pulled up analysis of Juridian energy signatures cross-referenced against ancient weapons specifications. "The drones should work. They're designed to penetrate exotic energy shields, and the Juridians are essentially living exotic energy. But we're talking about engaging dozens of energy beings whose individual power output exceeds our mothership-class targets. It's going to be significantly more difficult than disabling the Taelon vessels. And they're threatening Earth," Taylor added. "If we refuse their ultimatum, billions of humans who just won freedom from Taelon occupation will face invasion by beings even more powerful and less interested in cooperation." Sheppard felt the weight of another impossible choice settling across his shoulders. They could surrender the Taelons, give Zo'or and his people to the Juridians, and avoid conflict entirely. They could surrender ancient technology, hand over databases that contained 10,000 years of knowledge to beings who'd use it for purposes unknown. Or they could fight defend asylum they'd granted to former occupiers against energy beings whose power exceeded anything they'd faced. "We're not surrendering anyone," Sheppard decided. "The Taelons requested asylum. We granted it. That means they're under Atlantis' protection until we find them a cure or find a way home. Period. Even if protecting them means war with energy beings who can apparently sterilize planets, McKay asked. Even then, Sheppard confirmed. Because if we surrender refugees to save ourselves, we become exactly what we accuse the Taelons of being. Beings who compromise principles for survival. We hold the line. We find solutions. And we figure out how to defend Earth against invasion while simultaneously finishing the death-sleep cure so the Taelons stop being targets. He turned to Zo'or directly. You said the Juridians view you as evolutionary failures. What would they consider evolutionary success? When you think Seven with well. The Taelon understood immediately where Sheppard was going. Completion of the transition to pure energy form. If the Taelons achieved full ascension, as the Juridians did, we would no longer be failures in their view. We would be equals, perhaps even allies, as we were before our species diverged millennia ago. Then McKay's cure becomes more than medical treatment, Sheppard said, his tactical mind seeing how the pieces could fit together. It becomes diplomatic solution. If we can force the Taelons through ascension before the Juridians' deadline expires, we remove their justification for invasion. That's an insane plan based on experimental medical procedure that might destroy Taelon consciousness, McKay protested. It's the only plan that saves the Taelons and Earth simultaneously, Sheppard countered. Zo'or, what's your assessment? Would the Juridians accept ascended Taelons as equals? The Taelon leader's form flickered with something that might have been desperate hope. Possibly, the Juridians respect power and evolutionary achievement. If the Taelons ascended, we would demonstrate both. But Colonel Sheppard, Dr. McKay's cure is untested. Forcing my entire species through ascension could destroy us as effectively as the death sleep. Or it could save you while giving the Juridians reason to withdraw. Sheppard replied. What's the Taelon Synod's consensus? Would you accept forced ascension as alternative to death? Or surrender? Zo'or consulted with the other Taelon refugees through their telepathic network, a brief moment of silent communication that probably involved more debate than human speech could have conveyed in hours. When the alien spoke again, the decision was clear. The Synod accepts Dr. McKay's experimental ascension treatment. We choose uncertain transformation over certain extinction. If we must change to survive, let us change into something greater rather than fade into nothing. McKay looked like he wanted to argue, to protest that this was too rushed and too dangerous and too likely to fail catastrophically. But he was also a scientist who understood when theoretical objections had to yield to practical necessity. I'll need 12 hours to modify the ancient ascension technology for mass application, McKay said, already running calculations. And Sheppard, I need to be absolutely clear. I have no idea if this will work. The Taelons might ascend successfully, or they might disperse into incoherent energy. Or they might become something neither Taelon nor Juridian recognizes as sentient life. This is the most experimental medical procedure in 2 galaxies. Understood, Sheppard replied. You've got 12 hours. Use them. As McKay departed for the labs with the manic energy of someone racing against cosmic deadline, Sheppard turned to face the broader crisis. The Juridians had given them 1 Earth rotation 24 hours before invasion. McKay needed 12 hours to prepare the ascension treatment. That left 12 hours to defend against energy beings while the procedure occurred. Ronan, coordinate with Earth's defense forces, Sheppard ordered. I want every military asset on this planet ready to engage Juridian ground troops if they materialize. Taela, work with Liam Kincaid and the Resistance. They know Earth's tactical geography better than we do. And get me everything we can learn about Juridian capabilities from Zo'or and the Taelon database. He moved to the ancient chair, settling into the neural interface that had saved Atlantis countless times. We've got 12 hours before McKay attempts to ascend an entire species using experimental technology. Until then, We hold the line against energy beings who think they can intimidate us into surrendering refugees. The chair's connection activated, linking Sheppard's consciousness to the city's systems. He could feel the drone weapons ready in their tubes, could sense Earth's population below preparing for invasion, could perceive the Juridian vessels holding position in space while their ultimatum's countdown ticked away. 37 energy beings versus one ancient city ship, and a planet full of humans who just won freedom from one occupation and weren't about to accept another. The odds weren't good, but Sheppard had built a career on winning battles where the odds weren't good. And this time, success meant saving a dying species through forced evolution while defending Earth against beings who could manipulate reality itself. Just another impossible mission for the Atlantis expedition. And they'd find a way to succeed. Because that's what they did. They found ways. McKay's 12-hour deadline compressed into a frantic race between scientific breakthrough and Juridian patience running out. The scientist had commandeered Atlantis's largest laboratory and transformed it into something that looked like a fusion between ancient meditation chamber and medical facility, the Ascension platform from the database schematics. Surrounded by biometric monitors, energy field generators, and enough backup systems to make McKay feel slightly less terrified about forcing an entire species through evolutionary transition, the ancient ascension process worked through mental discipline and consciousness expansion. McKay explained to Sheppard during Hour 7, his exhaustion evident, but his scientific enthusiasm overriding physical limitations. Individuals meditated for years to achieve the mental state required for transition to energy form. Obviously, we don't have years. So I'm using ancient technology to artificially induce the neurological patterns associated with ascension, while simultaneously stabilizing the Taelons' degrading energy matrix. He pulled up schematics that showed the modified equipment. Think of it as forcing enlightenment through technological means. The ancients would probably consider it cheating, but they're not here to complain, and the Taelons are dying, so philosophical purity takes a back seat to practical survival. What's the success probability? Sheppard asked, watching Taelon refugees gather in the laboratory with expressions that suggested they understood this might be their final moments as the beings they'd always been. Honestly, 63% chance of successful transition to stable energy form, 22% chance of catastrophic dispersal where they cease to exist as coherent entities, 15% chance of partial success where some Taelons ascend while others fail. McKay met Sheppard's eyes. Those aren't good odds, and normally I'd never recommend proceeding with experimental procedure that has 1 in 3 chance of killing the patients. But compared to certain extinction from death sleep, 63% is better than 0%, Zo'or said, the Taelon leader having approached silently while they discussed his species' fate. The alien's luminescent form was barely visible now, the death sleep having accelerated to the point where cellular cohesion was failing in real time. We accept the risk, Dr. McKay. Begin when ready. Outside the laboratory, the tactical situation had deteriorated exactly as predicted. The Juridian fleet had grown to over 50 vessels, their energy signatures forming a blockade around Earth that prevented any escape through conventional means. Worse, Juridian ground forces had begun materializing in major cities, pure energy beings who could pass through physical barriers and manipulate matter through will alone. Earth's military is engaging Juridian manifestations across 12 major population centers, Ronan reported from the security station, his tactical display showing combat that looked more like supernatural warfare than conventional battle. Conventional weapons pass through them like they're not even there. Energy weapons have some effect, but minimal. The Juridians are treating human resistance as, I don't even know what to call it, annoying insects? They're demonstrating their superiority, Taylor observed, pulling up intelligence from Liam Kincaid's resistance networks. Showing Earth's population that physical force is meaningless against energy beings. It's psychological warfare designed to make surrender seem inevitable. Sheppard watched the reports through the chair's neural interface. His consciousness spread across Atlantis' systems, while simultaneously tracking the Juridian threat. The energy beings were deliberately avoiding casualties. They could have vaporized cities instantly, but instead were simply proving invulnerability to human weapons. It was a message. Resistance was futile, surrender was logical, and continued defiance would only delay the inevitable. Except the Juridians had made a fundamental miscalculation. They assumed Atlantis would value Earth's immediate safety over principle, that the expedition would surrender Taelon refugees rather than risk billions of human lives defending beings who'd spent 3 years occupying this planet. They were about to learn that some things were worth fighting for even when the odds said you'd lose. Ronan, deploy security teams with ancient energy weapons to support Earth's defense forces, Sheppard ordered. I want Juridian ground troops learning that we can hurt them even if conventional weapons can't. Taela, coordinate with the resistance on evacuation protocols for population centers under attack. We can't stop the Juridians from manifesting, but we can minimize casualties while McKay completes the ascension procedure. He checked the chronometer, 4 hours until McKay's deadline, 20 hours until the Juridian ultimatum expired. The mathematics were barely manageable if everything went perfectly, which meant they wouldn't be manageable at all once reality complicated the plan. In the laboratory, McKay activated the modified ancient ascension platform with the reluctant certainty of someone who knew this would either save a species or destroy it. The Taelon refugees, 123 beings representing the last remnants of their civilization, positioned themselves within the energy field's range, while McKay's instruments monitored every biological parameter. Beginning neurological induction sequence, McKay announced, his hands moving across ancient controls with practiced precision despite the complete lack of precedent for what he was attempting. Taelons, you're going to experience consciousness expansion similar to deep meditation, but accelerated by several orders of magnitude. Try to maintain coherent thought patterns even as your perception expands beyond physical limitations. The ancient technology activated with a harmonic resonance that made reality itself seem to vibrate. The Taelons' luminescent forms began to shift, their partial corporeality dissolving, as the ascension process forced them toward pure energy existence. Zo'or's form was among the first to transition the dying Taelon leader's consciousness, expanding outward in patterns that McKay's instruments could barely measure. Energy matrix stabilization occurring across 70% of subjects, McKay reported, his voice carrying cautious optimism. They're transitioning successfully, consciousness remains coherent, while physical anchoring dissolves. This is actually working. But even as he spoke, warning alerts flared across the medical monitors. 15 of the Taelons showed destabilizing energy patterns, their consciousness fragmenting under the strain of forced ascension. McKay's instruments tracked the catastrophic failure in real-time beings who'd existed for millennia, dispersing into incoherent energy that would never reform. We're losing subjects, McKay said, his fingers flying across controls, trying to stabilize the failing transitions. The degradation from death sleep made their energy matrices too weak to withstand full ascension. They're dispersing. I can't stop it. Sheppard watched through the chair's sensors as 15 Taelon refugees ceased to exist, their consciousness dissolving into ambient energy that would never again achieve sentient form. It was exactly the outcome McKay had warned about the cure killing as effectively as the disease, just in a different way. But the other 108 Taelons were succeeding. Their forms had completed the transition to pure energy. Their consciousness had stabilized in the new configuration, and McKay's instruments confirmed they were achieving the same state the Juridians had reached millennia ago. The Taelons were ascending. Not through meditation and enlightenment, but through technological force and desperate survival instinct. They were becoming what the Juridians had always claimed they should be, fully evolved energy beings, unbound by physical limitation. and in orbit above Earth, the Geridian fleet detected the change immediately. The lead Geridian vessel broadcast across all frequencies, its energy-based communication carrying surprise that approached something like respect. The evolutionary failures have achieved ascension. Impossible. The Taelons lack the discipline for consciousness expansion, yet we detect 108 stable energy matrices achieving coherent sentience beyond corporeal limitation. How? Ancient technology, came Zo'or's response, but the voice was different now, carrying harmonics that suggested consciousness operating on levels beyond what the Taelon leader had possessed before. The newly ascended being manifested in the laboratory as pure energy, given vaguely familiar form, and when it spoke, the communication bypassed language entirely. We used the knowledge left by beings who transcended physicality 10,000 years ago. We forced evolution through technological means because we refused to accept extinction as inevitable. Technological ascension, the Geridian leader's response, carried what might have been contemplation. The ancients would consider this sacrilege, achieving through machinery what should require consciousness development. Yet you succeeded where we believed you would fail. Perhaps the Taelons are not evolutionary failures after all. Sheppard felt the tactical situation shift as the Geridian fleet's threatening posture relaxed slightly. The energy beings weren't withdrawing, not yet, but they were reassessing their fundamental assumptions about the Taelons. Status on the ground combat? Sheppard asked Ronan. Geridian forces are pulling back from major cities, Ronan reported with visible confusion. They're not retreating completely, but they've stopped demonstrating invulnerability and started talking? The Geridians are broadcasting messages about evolutionary achievement and potential reconciliation. I don't understand what changed. The Taelons ascended, Taela explained, her diplomatic instincts recognizing the shift. The Geridians' entire invasion justification was preventing evolutionary failures from corrupting ancient knowledge. But if the Taelons successfully achieved the same evolutionary state the Geridians did, they're no longer failures. They're equals. McKay emerged from the laboratory looking like he'd aged a decade in 12 hours. The procedure is complete. 108 Taelons successfully ascended to stable energy form. 15 casualties from subjects whose death-sleep degradation was too severe to withstand the transition. His voice carried the weight of those deaths, even as he acknowledged the larger success. But the survivors are now fully energy-based beings, operating at consciousness levels comparable to Geridian capabilities. They're essentially a new species, or rather, they're what the Taelons were always meant to become. Zo'or's ascended form manifested in the control room, the energy being's presence making instruments flicker and reality feel slightly unstable. When the former Taelon leader spoke, the communication carried depths that corporeal language couldn't fully express. The Geridians have requested negotiation. They wish to discuss our new status and the implications for the ancient conflict between our species. They are impressed that we achieved ascension through technological means, curious about the ancient knowledge that made it possible, and willing to consider that beings who can force their own evolution through desperate innovation might be worthy of something other than extermination. So the invasion is over? Sheppard asked carefully. The invasion is suspended, Zo'or corrected. The Geridians still want access to ancient technology. They still view corporeal species as inferior. But they now view ascended Taelons as potential partners rather than evolutionary failures requiring elimination. We have opportunity for negotiation that did not exist before. The ascended Taelon's energy form shifted in ways that suggested complex thought processes. Colonel Sheppard, you granted asylum to dying refugees when you could have surrendered us to save Earth. You helped us achieve ascension despite the risk to your own expedition. You defended principles over convenience. The ascended Taelons will not forget this debt. We don't need debt, Sheppard replied. We need the Geridians to leave Earth alone. and stop threatening billions of humans who have nothing to do with your species' ancient conflicts. That can be arranged, Zo'or said. The ascended Taelons will negotiate on Earth's behalf. Ensure the Juridians understand that this world and its population are under our protection. In exchange, the energy beings' presence intensified. We offer knowledge, ancient ascension techniques, Taelon energy manipulation technology, Juridian dimensional physics, everything we learned through our new existence, we will share with Atlantis' expedition. Consider it payment for the asylum that saved our species. McKay's eyes lit up with the expression of someone who'd just been offered access to scientific knowledge beyond his wildest dreams. You're offering to teach us ascension mechanics? Energy-based biology? Dimensional manipulation? All of that and more, Zo'or confirmed. The ascended Taelons exist because ancient technology and human courage combined to force evolution that should have been impossible. We will ensure that debt is repaid in knowledge that serves your expedition's mission. Over the next 72 hours, the crisis transformed into cautious diplomatic breakthrough. The ascended Taelons negotiated with the Juridian commonality from a position of newfound equality beings who'd achieved the same evolutionary state through different means, proving that technological ascension was valid alternative to the meditation-based approach both species had previously considered the only path. The Juridians withdrew from Earth with agreements that recognized the planet as under Taelon protection, accepted that ancient technology had facilitated legitimate evolutionary achievement, and established framework for future cooperation between ascended species who'd spent millennia as enemies. Earth's population processed the revelation that occupation by partially corporeal aliens had been ended only to be replaced by protection from fully energy-based beings. Liam Kincaid's resistance worked to ensure that protection didn't become new occupation, that the ascended Taelons remembered the lessons about consent and freedom that had destroyed their previous governance model. And in Atlantis' laboratories, McKay began the fascinating process of learning energy manipulation techniques from beings who existed beyond physical limitation, but remembered what it meant to be desperate, dying, and saved through unlikely alliance. So, Sheppard said to his team 3 days after the ascension, we arrived in this universe by accident, exposed alien occupation, started a war, ended it by forcing an entire species to ascend, and now we're protected by energy beings who used to enslave Earth, but promise they've learned better. Anyone else feel like this might be our most complicated mission ever? It's definitely in the top 5, Taylor replied diplomatically. Top 3, Ronan countered. Honestly, I'm just glad nobody deployed biological weapons this time. McKay said, forced ascension is morally complex, but at least it's not genocide. That's progress, right? Sheppard laughed despite himself. That's one way to measure success. We saved a species, defended Earth, and avoided committing atrocities. Standard Tuesday for Atlantis. The ascended Taelons had begun the long process of negotiating their new relationship with Earth, offering knowledge and protection while learning to respect the freedom and autonomy they'd violated during their corporeal occupation. The Juridians watched with cautious interest, curious about beings who'd achieved ascension through technology and determination rather than consciousness development. And somewhere in Atlantis' ancient database, McKay had found references to dimensional transition mechanics that might possibly allow the city to return to their original universe. The mission wasn't over. It had simply transformed into something different. But that was what the Atlantis expedition did best: adapt, survive, and find solutions to problems that shouldn't have solutions. One impossible mission at a time. 6 weeks after the Taelon ascension, McKay burst into the control room with the manic energy of someone who'd spent 72 consecutive hours solving impossible equations and had finally achieved breakthrough. His hair was disheveled, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was carrying a tablet displaying mathematical formulae that made even ancient database entries look simple by comparison. "I figured it out," McKay announced to anyone within earshot. "The dimensional transition that brought us here, I know how to recreate it. We can go home." Sheppard looked up from the tactical report he'd been reviewing with Taelon, his expression shifting from routine command duties to focused attention. "You can replicate the accident that pulled us into this universe? Better than replicate. I can control it," McKay replied, pulling up his calculations on the main holographic display. "The Ascended Taelons gave me access to Juridian dimensional physics research, combined with ancient knowledge about alternate realities. When I cross-referenced that with the sensor data from our original hyperdrive malfunction," he gestured at the complex mathematical models, "we didn't just suffer random equipment failure. We punched through a weak point in dimensional barriers, a natural instability that exists at specific spatial coordinates." He highlighted the relevant data with the enthusiasm of someone explaining a scientific miracle. "The Juridians have been studying these weak points for millennia as potential gateways between universes. They never exploited them because energy beings don't need to travel between realities. They exist across multiple dimensional states simultaneously. But for physical beings with hyperdrive technology." McKay's grin was almost manic. "We can deliberately transit between universes by targeting these dimensional weak points with precisely calibrated hyperdrive fields." Ronan moved closer to the display, studying the calculations with the focused attention of someone who understood tactical implications, even if the science was beyond him. "How accurate is this? Can you guarantee we'll return to our universe instead of ending up somewhere worse?" "I can guarantee 94% probability of returning to our original reality," McKay replied, which was high confidence by his standards. "The dimensional signature we left behind when we transited here acts like a beacon. Our hyperdrive can lock onto that signature and follow it back to the source universe. There's a 6% margin for error where we might end up in a closely adjacent reality, but even that would be significantly closer to home than we are now." Taelon pulled up additional data showing Earth's current status in this universe. "If we depart, what happens to our alliance with the Ascended Taelons? And our commitment to ensure Earth's freedom is maintained?" "The Taelons have that covered," McKay said, pulling up diplomatic agreements that Zo'or had transmitted. "They've established formal protection protocols with Earth's government's transparent oversight, no CVI technology, genuine partnership based on mutual respect rather than manipulation. The Ascended Taelons learned from their mistakes. They're not going to repeat the occupation just because we're gone." Sheppard studied the dimensional transit calculations, running scenarios through his tactical mind. They'd been in this universe for 2 months, gotten involved in an alien occupation, forced a species to ascend, and negotiated peace between ancient enemies. Mission accomplished by any reasonable measure. But leaving meant abandoning the relationships they'd built, the knowledge they could still gain, and the potential that this universe represented. "What about the scientific knowledge the Taelons promised?" Sheppard asked. "The ascension mechanics, energy manipulation, dimensional physics, if we leave before fully documenting that information." "Already handled," McKay interrupted, gesturing to data storage units that contained terabytes of information. "The Ascended Taelons have been remarkably generous about sharing everything they've learned. I've got complete databases on energy-based biology, consciousness expansion techniques, dimensional manipulation theory, and enough advanced physics to keep me busy for decades. Plus, Zo'or gave us something even more valuable." He pulled up schematics that made Sheppard's tactical awareness immediately recognize as significant. The Taelons developed interdimensional portal technology that doesn't require dimensional weak points. They can create stable transit corridors between universes through pure energy manipulation. If we integrate that technology with Atlantis' systems, we wouldn't be limited to one-way trips through natural instabilities. We could travel between universes deliberately, returning to this reality if we wanted, or exploring others entirely. You're talking about turning Atlantis into a multiversal exploration vessel, Taelon said, understanding the implications immediately. I'm talking about expanding our mission beyond a single universe, McKay corrected. The ancients built stargates to explore one galaxy. We could use Taelon Geridian technology to explore multiple realities. Think about the scientific opportunities, the cultural exchanges, the potential for getting involved in other universes' conflicts, just like we did here. Ronan interrupted. Every time we step through to a new reality, we risk finding another occupation to end or another dying species to save. Are we really prepared to make that our permanent mission? It was a fair question that cut through McKay's scientific enthusiasm to the core issue. What was Atlantis' mission now? They'd been exploring Pegasus Galaxy when the dimensional accident brought them here. They could return home, resume their original mission, and pretend this had been an interesting detour. Or they could embrace the broader possibility, become travelers between realities, helping where they could and learning from every universe they encountered. That's not a decision I make alone, Sheppard said, recognizing when command authority needed to yield to crew consensus. This affects everyone aboard Atlantis. We put it to a vote, return to our original universe, and resume operations in Pegasus, or stay mobile between realities using the Taelon portal technology. Every member of the expedition gets a voice. Over the next 48 hours, Atlantis' crew engaged in the kind of philosophical debate that rarely happened during routine military operations. Scientists argued for the unprecedented research opportunities that multiversal travel represented. Military personnel pointed out the tactical advantages of being able to retreat to alternate realities if situations became untenable. Others raised concerns about moral obligations to universes they visited. Could they really just leave after getting involved in their conflicts? Liam Kincaid visited Atlantis one final time before the vote concluded, the resistance leader having become something like a friend during the crisis. Whatever you decide, Colonel Sheppard, Earth owes you a debt we can never fully repay. You exposed the Taelon occupation when we couldn't. You helped us win freedom, and you saved a dying species in the process. That's more than we had any right to ask from visitors who were only here by accident. We did what needed doing. Sheppard replied with the casual humility of someone who'd spent years making similar interventions. You would have found a way to defeat the Taelons eventually. We just accelerated the timeline. Maybe, Liam acknowledged. But the fact remains, you had no obligation to help, and you did anyway. That matters. And if you're really considering using Taelon portal technology to travel between universes, he pulled out a data drive. We've compiled everything we learned about the Taelons, the Geridians, the CVI, and the resistance strategies that worked. If you encounter similar situations in other realities, this might help. Sheppard accepted the drive, recognizing it for what it was. A gift from one defender of freedom to another. Appreciated. And Liam? Keep the Taelons honest. They promised transparent partnership, but species don't change overnight just because they ascend. Make sure Earth's freedom stays real, not just differently packaged occupation. That's the plan. Liam confirmed. The resistance isn't disbanding. We're just transitioning into oversight organization, making sure the ascended Taelons remember that protection doesn't mean control. After Liam departed, the vote results came through the expedition's communication network. Sheppard read them with interest that mixed with his own uncertainty about what he hoped the outcome would be. Return to original universe, 127 votes, 63.5%. Embrace multiversal exploration, 73 votes, 36.5%. The crew had spoken. They wanted to go home. resume their mission in Pegasus Galaxy, reconnect with Stargate Command, and return to the familiar challenges of Wraith, ancient technology, and the galaxy they'd spent years learning to navigate. But the 36.5% who'd voted for continued multiversal exploration represented a significant minority who saw broader possibilities. And McKay had integrated the Taelon portal technology regardless of the vote outcome. The capability existed even if they chose not to use it immediately. "We're going home," Sheppard announced to his senior staff in the briefing that followed. "The crew voted for return to our original universe, and I'm honoring that decision. But we're keeping the portal technology. If situations in Pegasus ever require strategic retreat, or we encounter problems that might benefit from multiversal perspective, we have options now." "When do we leave?" Taylor asked. McKay pulled up the dimensional transit calculations. The nearest natural weak point aligns with Earth's orbital position in 72 hours. "I need that time to calibrate the hyperdrive for controlled dimensional transition. After that, we power up the drive, punch through the barrier, and follow our dimensional signature home." "And the ascended Taelons?" Ronan asked. "They're throwing us a going-away party," McKay said with a slight grin. "Apparently, energy beings have developed sophisticated celebration protocols. Should be interesting watching entities that exist beyond physical limitation try to express gratitude through methods comprehensible to corporeal species." The 72 hours compressed into a flurry of final preparations, diplomatic farewells, and the strange melancholy that came with leaving a universe where they'd made genuine impact. The ascended Taelons manifested around Atlantis in formation that suggested honor guard, their energy forms creating patterns of light that Earth's population could see from the surface. Zo'or's presence materialized in the control room one final time, the ascended being's consciousness touching the expedition's awareness with communication that transcended language. "Lieutenant Colonel Sheppard, your expedition arrived in our universe by accident and departed having changed everything. The Taelons exist as ascended beings because you refused to surrender refugees to their enemies. Earth enjoys freedom because you exposed occupation that most couldn't see. The Juridians learned that evolution can be forced through determination and technology rather than only consciousness development. You altered the trajectory of 3 species in 2 months. The energy being's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. The ancients, who built your city, would be proud or horrified, possibly both. But they would certainly recognize that Atlantis continues their tradition of fundamentally altering every reality it encounters." "We didn't mean to alter anything," Sheppard replied. "We just responded to what we found. Occupation, dying refugees, invasion. We dealt with the situations as they came." "That is precisely what makes your impact profound," Zo'or responded. "You did not arrive with agenda to reshape our universe according to your vision. You simply refused to accept that occupation and extinction were inevitable outcomes. That small refusal, that stubborn insistence that better options must exist, changed everything." The ascended Taelon's presence intensified briefly. "Safe travels, Atlantis expedition. May you find your home universe still recognizable after your absence. And may you remember, the portal technology we provided works in both directions. If you ever require allies who exist beyond physical limitation, or knowledge about dimensional physics, or simply friends who remember what you did for dying refugees, the ascended Taelons will answer." "Appreciated," Sheppard said. "And Zo'or, don't screw this up. Earth gave you a second chance at partnership. Make sure it's actual partnership this time." "We will," the ascended being promised. "The Taelons learned what happens when desperation overcomes ethics. We will not repeat those mistakes." The energy being dispersed, and McKay's chronometer indicated 30 seconds until dimensional transition window opened. All stations report ready, Taelon announced from the communication console. Hyperdrive is calibrated. Dimensional weak point is stable. We're ready to go home. Sheppard settled into the command chair, feeling Atlantis' systems respond to his presence through the neural interface. The city had carried them across galaxies, through dimensional barriers, into universes where they didn't belong but made differences anyway. Now it would carry them home. Engage hyperdrive, Sheppard ordered. Let's go home. The ancient city ship's engines activated with the familiar thrumming that proceeded faster than light travel. But this time the sensation was different. Reality itself seemed to bend as Atlantis punched through dimensional barriers between universes. The transition felt simultaneously instantaneous and eternal, a moment of complete dissolution followed by perfect reconstruction. When the hyperdrive disengaged and sensors re-established normal space readings, the tactical display showed a sight that made everyone in the control room release breaths they'd been holding. Lantia. The ocean world where they'd established Atlantis in their original universe. The familiar star patterns of Pegasus Galaxy. Home. Confirmed position in our original universe, McKay reported, his voice carrying relief and triumph equally. All systems nominal. The dimensional transit worked perfectly. We're home. Taelon immediately activated communication protocols, attempting to contact Stargate Command. We've been out of contact for 2 months in our time frame. They probably think we're dead. Or they didn't notice we were gone, Ronan suggested. Time might flow differently between universes. Could be we've only been missing 4 hours in this reality. Number 4. Number 4. Number 4. Number 4. Number 4. McKay checked the chronometer readings against Atlantis' internal logs. Actually, it's been 3 days here. We spent 2 months in the alternate universe, but only 72 hours passed in our original reality. Temporal dilation between dimensional states. The Taelons warned me this might happen, but I didn't fully account for the magnitude. So, from Stargate Command's perspective, Atlantis disappeared for 3 days? Sheppard asked. Exactly. They're probably worried, but not panicked. We can explain the disappearance as hyperdrive malfunction that required time to repair. Or we tell them the truth, Taelon suggested, that we accidentally transited to alternate universe, exposed alien occupation, forced species to ascend, and acquired technology that allows multiversal travel. Complete honesty about our capabilities and what we encountered. Sheppard considered both options. The classified explanation was simpler, avoided questions about timeline alterations and multiversal intervention. But it also meant lying to Stargate Command about capabilities that could reshape humanity's understanding of reality itself. We tell them the truth, Sheppard decided. They deserve to know what we found, what we can do now, and what implications that has for future operations. Plus, McKay will want to publish papers about dimensional physics that will make hiding the portal technology impossible anyway. Already drafting the first 12 papers, McKay confirmed cheerfully. The communication console activated with an incoming transmission, Stargate Command's emergency frequency, Colonel Carter's voice cutting through with the controlled concern of someone who'd spent 3 days wondering if Atlantis had been destroyed. Atlantis, this is Stargate Command. We've been attempting to contact you for 72 hours. Please respond with status update. Stargate Command, this is Lieutenant Colonel Sheppard, he replied, unable to suppress a slight smile. Apologies for the communication blackout. We had a minor hyperdrive malfunction that resulted in unintended dimensional transit to alternate universe. We're back now, all personnel accounted for, and we have some very interesting discoveries to report. The silence on the other end suggested Carter was processing exactly how casual that explanation had been. Did you just say dimensional transit to alternate universe? Carter's voice finally came back, carrying the tone of scientists who just heard the most fascinating and terrifying sentence simultaneously. Affirmative. We spent 2 months local time in a reality where Earth had been contacted by dying aliens called Taelons. Got involved in ending their occupation, helped them achieve ascension, and acquired technology that allows controlled travel between universes. Should make for interesting debriefing. Another pause. Then Carter's voice returned, with the dry humor of someone who'd stopped being surprised by Atlantis' missions years ago. Of course you did. Welcome home, Atlantis. Prepare for comprehensive debriefing in 6 hours. And Colonel Sheppard? Yes, ma'am. Next time you discover multiversal travel technology, maybe lead with that information instead of burying it in casual mission update? Noted, Sheppard replied, grinning. Atlantis. Out. As the city settled into orbital position above Lantia, and the expedition began the transition from crisis operations back to routine exploration, Sheppard stood at the edge viewport, looking at familiar stars, and reflected on 2 months that felt simultaneously like years and moments. They'd gone to another universe by accident, and returned having changed it fundamentally. The Taelons existed as ascended beings instead of extinct failures. Earth enjoyed freedom instead of subtle occupation, and Atlantis possessed technology that could carry them across realities like the ancient Stargates carried them across space. Think we'll use it? Ronan asked, joining Sheppard at the viewport. The portal technology. Will we actually travel to other universes? Or was this a one-time accident we're content to leave behind? I don't know, Sheppard admitted. But I know we have the capability now. And if situations arise where that capability serves a purpose, we'll use it. That's what we do. We find solutions to impossible problems using whatever tools we have available. Even if those tools let us alter entire universes? Especially then, Sheppard replied, because sometimes the universe needs altering. Sometimes occupation needs exposing, dying species need saving, and people need someone stubborn enough to insist that better options exist. Ronan nodded slowly. The Taelons were lucky we were the ones who stumbled into their universe. Another expedition might have just left Earth to its occupation and focused on getting home. We're Atlantis, Sheppard said simply. We don't leave people to their occupations. We end them. And somewhere in the multiverse, across dimensional barriers in a reality they departed but would always remember, the ascended Taelons watched over Earth with the protective determination of beings who'd learned the hard way that partnership required mutual respect. The expedition was home. The mission continued. And the multiverse was just a little bit different because Atlantis had passed through it. One impossible mission at a time. The debriefing with Stargate Command lasted 6 hours and covered everything from the initial hyperdrive malfunction to the final dimensional transit home. Colonel Carter listened with the rapt attention of someone whose scientific worldview was being fundamentally expanded, while General Landry focused on the tactical and political implications of Atlantis having acquired multiversal travel capability. Let me make sure I understand correctly, Landry said, reviewing the mission report for the 3rd time. You accidentally transited to an alternate universe where Earth had been contacted by aliens called Taelons. You exposed their occupation through public confrontation. You granted asylum to dying refugees who'd spent 3 years enslaving that Earth's population. You defended them against energy beings called Juridians. And you forced an entire species to ascend using experimental ancient technology? That's an accurate summary, sir. Sheppard confirmed. And now Atlantis possesses technology that allows deliberate transit between universes, meaning we're no longer limited to operations in a single reality. Also accurate. Landry leaned back in his chair with the expression of someone calculating political ramifications that extended far beyond military operations. Colonel Sheppard, you've just given the IOA something they're going to debate for years. The ethical implications of intervening in alternate universes. the strategic value of multiversal travel, the potential for creating diplomatic incidents across dimensional boundaries. With respect, sir, we didn't seek out the capability, Sheppard replied. The hyperdrive malfunction was accidental. But once we were in that universe and saw the occupation happening, we had to respond. We couldn't just ignore billions of people living under alien control because intervening might create complications. I'm not criticizing the intervention, Landry clarified. From what you've reported, the Taelons' occupation was a genuine threat that required response. I'm just noting that the IOA will have strong opinions about Atlantis possessing technology that could take us into other realities where similar situations might exist. Carter pulled up McKay's technical documentation about the portal technology. The science here is remarkable. The Taelons and Geridians spent millennia developing interdimensional transit through pure energy manipulation. If we can replicate even a fraction of their techniques using ancient technology as foundation, she trailed off, clearly already running calculations. We could revolutionize our understanding of dimensional physics, possibly even develop countermeasures against threats that operate across multiple realities. Or we could get involved in other universes' wars, Landry countered, create enemies across dimensional boundaries, spread Earth's conflicts into realities that never ask for our interference. It was the same debate that had happened aboard Atlantis, the tension between opportunity and responsibility, between the capability to help and the wisdom to know when intervention created more problems than it solved. General, permission to speak candidly? Sheppard asked. Granted. We're going to encounter situations where the portal technology is the right tool for the mission. Maybe it's strategic retreat when we're overwhelmed in our own universe. Maybe it's accessing knowledge that only exists in alternate realities. Maybe it's helping people who are facing threats we've already learned to defeat. Sheppard paused. I'm not suggesting we make multiversal intervention our primary mission, but I am saying that having the capability and refusing to use it when it could save lives, that's a choice with its own moral weight. Landry considered this for several seconds. Then, agreed. The portal technology remains classified at the highest levels. Atlantis retains the capability, but uses it only under specific circumstances, requiring my authorization or extreme emergency. And Colonel Sheppard? Sir? The next time you accidentally discover how to travel between universes, I want real-time reports, not a debriefing after you've already saved an entire reality and come home. Understood, sir. The briefing concluded with Atlantis authorized to continue operations in Pegasus while maintaining the portal technology as classified strategic asset. McKay immediately buried himself in research, cross-referencing Taelon dimensional physics with ancient databases to develop better understanding of multiversal mechanics. Taela coordinated with diplomatic teams about the implications of potential contact with alternate Earths, and Ronan returned to security duties with the satisfied knowledge that Atlantis could now retreat to other universes if the Wraith ever became truly overwhelming. 3 weeks after their return, Sheppard was reviewing routine mission reports when McKay burst into his office with the manic energy that usually preceded either breakthrough or catastrophe. I found something in the Taelon data, McKay announced, pulling up holographic displays without waiting for invitation. References to other universes they detected but never visited. And Sheppard, one of them has energy signatures that match descriptions of ascended ancients. Sheppard's attention focused immediately. You're saying there's a universe where the ancients didn't ascend? Or one where they're active instead of maintaining non-interference? I'm saying there's a universe where something that looks like ancient energy signatures is operating on a scale we've never encountered, McKay replied, highlighting the relevant data. The Taelons detected it but never investigated because their dimensional transit capability was limited to nearby realities. But with Atlantis's enhanced portal technology, we could reach it. And you want to investigate, Sheppard said, reading McKay's expression accurately. I want to understand what it means when beings who achieved ascension 10,000 years ago might still be active in ways they're not here, McKay corrected. This could answer fundamental questions about the ancients' motivations, their capabilities, their reasons for non-interference in our reality. It's the kind of discovery that justifies having multiversal travel technology. Sheppard studied the data, running tactical scenarios. An expedition to a universe where ancients or beings like them were apparently active could provide knowledge that revolutionized their understanding of ascension, ancient technology, and the broader multiverse. But it also meant deliberately transiting to an unknown reality based on energy signatures that might not mean what they appeared to mean. I'll request authorization from General Landry, Sheppard decided. But McKay, if we do this, we go in careful. Reconnaissance only. We don't get involved in that universe's conflicts or problems. We gather information, analyze it, and come home. Understood? Completely understood. McKay agreed with the enthusiasm of someone who'd just been granted access to the scientific discovery of a lifetime. The authorization came through 48 hours later with strict parameters. Limited duration expedition. Minimal contact with local populations. Extraction protocols if situations became dangerous. Atlantis would transit to the universe with the unusual ancient signatures, conduct reconnaissance, and return within 1 week local time. As the city's hyperdrive powered up for deliberate dimensional transit, the first controlled use of the portal technology since their return, Sheppard felt the familiar mixture of anticipation and concern that preceded every mission. Into unknown territory. Dimensional coordinates locked, McKay reported from the control station. Transit window stable. We're ready to go. All stations, prepare for dimensional transition. Sheppard transmitted across the city's communication network. We're about to find out what happens when ancients don't follow the non-interference philosophy. Everyone stay sharp. The hyperdrive engaged, reality bent, and Atlantis punched through dimensional barriers into a universe where the readings suggested beings like the ancients were doing something very different from quietly watching from higher planes of existence. The city emerged into normal space, sensors immediately painting a picture that made everyone in the control room pause in recognition and wonder. They were in orbit above Earth. But this Earth was different. Massive structures in geosynchronous orbit that radiated ancient energy signatures. Cities below showing technology centuries beyond what should exist in early 21st century. And across every sensor reading, evidence of civilization that had integrated ancient knowledge into everyday existence. This is what happens when ancients share their technology openly, McKay breathed. This Earth has had access to ascended beings' knowledge for I don't even know how long. Decades? Centuries? This is incredible. But Sheppard's tactical awareness was focused on something else. The dozen ships approaching Atlantis's position at velocities, suggesting military intercept rather than friendly greeting. Ships that looked like hybrid ancient human engineering, carrying weapon signatures that his instruments recognized as similar to Atlantis's drone systems. Contact, Ronan reported. Multiple vessels on intercept course. They're hailing us. Open channel, Sheppard ordered. The view screen activated, displaying a woman in what looked like military uniform, but incorporating design elements that suggested ancient influence. When she spoke, her voice carried authority that came from commanding advanced civilization rather than desperate survivors. Unknown ancient city ship. This is Captain Samantha Carter of the Tauri Space Command. You've entered protected space without authorization. Identify yourself and explain how you acquired an ancient city ship, or we will be forced to treat you as hostile threat. Sheppard blinked. Carter. Colonel Carter from Stargate Command. Except in this universe, she was apparently a captain commanding space forces for a civilization that casually referred to itself by the Goa'uld name for Earth. They'd found a universe where Earth hadn't just contacted the ancients. They'd become them. And now Atlantis had to explain to an Earth that commanded ancient technology why they just appeared in orbit without permission. "This is Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard, commanding the ancient city ship Atlantis," Sheppard replied carefully. "We're from an alternate universe conducting reconnaissance. We mean no harm and will depart if requested. But we're very interested in understanding how your Earth acquired ancient technology and what happened to create such an advanced civilization." The silence on the other end suggested Captain Carter was processing the concept of alternate universes and multiversal travel with the rapid assessment of someone whose scientific training included concepts most Earths wouldn't encounter for centuries. "Alternate universe," Carter repeated. "You're claiming to be from a different reality where Earth hasn't integrated ancient knowledge?" "Affirmative. In our reality, the ancients ascended and maintained strict non-interference. We found Atlantis abandoned in the Pegasus galaxy and have been operating it for several years, fighting the Wraith." Another pause. Then Carter's voice returned with unmistakable curiosity overriding military caution. "You fought the Wraith without ancient assistance? How did you survive?" "Stubbornly," Sheppard replied with slight grin. "And with a lot of improvisation. But Captain, we're more interested in your universe. What happened here that led to Earth integrating ancient technology so completely?" Carter's expression shifted into something complicated, mixture of pride and concern. "That's a long story, and one you should probably hear from someone with more authority than a ship captain. Stand by. I'm contacting someone who'll want to meet you." The transmission cut, leaving Atlantis' crew staring at each other across the control room. "So," McKay said into the silence, "we found a universe where Earth became an ancient-level civilization. This is either the greatest scientific opportunity ever, or we're about to discover what happens when humanity gets access to godlike power. Possibly both." "Possibly both," Sheppard agreed, watching the advanced Earthships maintain position around Atlantis with the disciplined precision of forces that commanded technology equal to what his city possessed. They'd come searching for answers about active ancients. Instead, they'd found humans who'd become ancients. And whatever had created this advanced Earth, Sheppard suspected, was a story that would fundamentally change their understanding of what humanity could become. The mission had just gotten significantly more complicated and significantly more interesting. The person Captain Carter contacted turned out to be Daniel Jackson, though this version of the archaeologist bore only superficial resemblance to the Daniel that Sheppard had met briefly during Atlantis' early days. This Daniel radiated the serene confidence of someone who'd achieved something beyond normal human capability, his presence carrying harmonics that suggested he existed partially in ascended state while maintaining corporeal form. "Lieutenant Colonel Sheppard," Daniel greeted via holographic transmission, his voice carrying depths that went beyond simple audio. "Captain Carter tells me you're from an alternate universe where the ancients ascended and left humanity to develop independently. That must have been challenging." "We've managed," Sheppard replied, studying this partially ascended Daniel with fascination and caution. "But we're more interested in understanding what happened in your universe. How did Earth integrate ancient technology so completely? And why are you, whatever you are now?" Daniel's smile carried warmth that felt genuine despite the alien nature of his partially ascended state. "I'm what the ancients in your universe chose not to become a bridge between ascension and corporeal existence. In our reality, the ancients never enforced strict non-interference. They guided humanity openly, shared their knowledge, and taught selected individuals how to achieve partial ascension while maintaining connection to physical reality." He gestured, and holographic displays filled with images of Earth's transformation. Ancient outposts integrated into human cities, ascended beings working alongside corporeal scientists. technology that married human innovation with ancient knowledge spanning millennia. The ancients in our universe believed that sharing knowledge served the greater good better than watching from higher planes, Daniel continued. They taught us ascension mechanics, dimensional physics, energy manipulation, everything they'd learned over millions of years of evolution. And we used that knowledge to transform Earth into what you see now, a civilization that operates on principles your ancients would have called impossible. McKay was practically vibrating with scientific curiosity. You're saying the ancients just gave you their entire technological database? No tests of worthiness? No achieve enlightenment first requirements? They tested us through different methods, Daniel replied. Moral challenges, ethical dilemmas, situations designed to prove we'd use ancient knowledge responsibly, rather than destructively. We failed some tests, succeeded at others, but the ancients here believed that hiding knowledge to prevent misuse was less effective than teaching responsible use through active guidance. And the Wraith? Ronan asked bluntly. In our universe, they've been culling the Pegasus galaxy for 10,000 years. What happened to them in yours? Daniel's expression shifted to something more somber. The Wraith posed the same threat here as in your reality. But with ancient guidance, we developed solutions your universe hasn't achieved. We didn't fight them conventionally or commit genocide through biological weapons. We offered them a choice. Continue feeding and face extermination by a humanity with ancient-level capabilities. Or accept ascension technology that would transition them beyond the need for feeding. You ascended the Wraith, Sheppard said, understanding immediately what that meant. Forced evolution like we did with the Taelons, but on a larger scale. We offered it as alternative to extinction, Daniel corrected gently. Many Wraith hives accepted. Others chose to fight and were destroyed by ancient human coalition forces. But the majority recognized that ascending beyond biological limitation was preferable to endless war against beings who could match their technology and exceed their capabilities. Taylor leaned forward, her diplomatic instincts recognizing the implications. You solved the Wraith threat through offering evolution rather than demanding surrender. That's remarkably similar to what we did in the Taelon universe. The Taelon universe? Daniel's interest sharpened. You've traveled to other realities beyond this one? Sheppard made the tactical decision to share their recent experiences. If this Earth commanded ancient-level technology and understood multiversal physics, they were either valuable allies or potential threats, and either way, honesty served better than deception. We accidentally transited to a universe where Earth was occupied by dying aliens called Taelons, Sheppard explained. We exposed their manipulation, granted them asylum when they surrendered, and helped them achieve ascension using ancient technology we found in Atlantis' database. The experience gave us access to interdimensional portal technology that we're now using to explore alternate realities. Daniel listened with the focused attention of someone recognizing parallel patterns across universes. You're doing what we did, finding solutions that transform threats rather than simply destroying them. Offering evolution as alternative to extinction. That's the philosophy the ancients in our universe tried to teach. The recognition that power should serve growth rather than domination. It's also pragmatic, McKay interjected. Ascending the Taelons removed the threat, while preserving a species that had valuable knowledge. Same calculation would apply to the Wraith if we could pull it off on the scale you're describing. The scale is the challenge, Daniel agreed. We had ancient guidance and decades to develop the ascension technology for mass application. Your universe would need to achieve the same results independently. Or, he paused meaningfully. You could accept assistance from a reality that's already solved the problems you're facing. The offer hung in the air, implicit but clear. This Earth, with its ancient-level technology, could help Sheppard's universe address the Wraith threat, develop ascension techniques, and accelerate human evolution by centuries. All they had to do was accept guidance from beings who'd already walked the path. That's a generous offer, Sheppard said carefully. But it comes with implications. With implications. With implications. With implications. If we accept ancient technology and knowledge from your universe, we're choosing a path similar to yours rather than developing our own solutions. We become dependent on assistance from another reality rather than earning our advancement through independent achievement. That's exactly the concern the non-interference ancients in your universe would raise, Daniel acknowledged. The belief that species must earn their evolution through trial, rather than receiving it through teaching. It's a valid philosophy, but it's also one that accepts massive suffering as necessary for growth. Our ancients disagreed. They believed that sharing knowledge to reduce suffering was more moral than watching civilizations struggle because earning it had philosophical value. Taela spoke quietly, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd seen both approaches. In our universe, the ancients' non-interference meant we fought the Wraith alone for years before finding Atlantis. Billions died in cullings that continued because we lacked the technology to stop them. If ancients had intervened, shared their knowledge, offered the Wraith ascension as alternative. She didn't finish the sentence. Billions would have been saved. Daniel completed. That's the calculation our ancients made. They chose to intervene despite philosophical arguments about earned evolution, because the cost of watching was too high to justify. Sheppard felt the familiar weight of command decisions settling across his shoulders. They'd come to this universe for reconnaissance, to understand what happened when ancients didn't follow non-interference. Instead, they'd found Earth that had become everything the ancients could have offered, and a choice about whether to accept that assistance for their own reality. I need to consult with my command structure, Sheppard said. This isn't a decision I make alone. It affects Earth, Atlantis, and the entire approach to the Wraith threat in our universe. Can you give us time to discuss internally? Of course, Daniel replied. Captain Carter will establish orbit protocols for Atlantis while you deliberate. And Colonel Sheppard? Whatever you decide, know that the offer stands. If your universe wants assistance, we'll provide it. If you prefer to develop independently, we respect that choice. The freedom to choose your own path is as important as the knowledge we could share. The transmission ended, leaving Atlantis' senior staff alone with a decision that would fundamentally shape their universe's future. We have to accept, McKay said immediately. They're offering solutions to problems that have killed billions. Ascension technology that could save the Wraith and humanity simultaneously. Ancient knowledge that would advance our civilization by centuries. Refusing that because of philosophical concerns about earning it is insane. It's also surrendering our independence, Ronan countered. If we accept their help, we become the universe that needed assistance from another reality. Everything we achieve afterward will be questioned. Did we earn it? Or did the ascended Earth just give us the answers? Does that matter if billions of lives are saved? Taela asked quietly. The pride of independent achievement seems less important than preventing the suffering that non-interference has caused. Sheppard listened to his team debate while his own thoughts circled the central question. What would accepting this assistance mean for their universe's development? They'd fought the Wraith independently for years, developed their own tactics, earned their victories through blood and stubbornness, and refusal to accept that culling was inevitable. Accepting ancient-level assistance would change that fundamental dynamic, but it would also save countless lives. Stop the culling permanently. Offer the Wraith evolution beyond feeding, rather than forcing them to continue as predators or face extinction. I'm going to recommend we accept limited assistance, Sheppard decided. Not full technology transfer or complete ancient knowledge download, but specific help with the Wraith Ascension technology, the techniques that could offer them evolution as alternative to endless war. We take that knowledge back to our universe, develop our own implementation, and maintain independence in how we apply it. A compromise between philosophical purity and pragmatic survival, McKay summarized. Exactly. We get the knowledge that could save billions while maintaining responsibility for how we use it, our choices, our implementation, our consequences. The decision made. Sheppard contacted Daniel Jackson to negotiate the specific assistance Atlantis would accept. The partially ascended archaeologist agreed immediately to providing technical specifications for Wraith Ascension technology, while respecting Sheppard's desire to maintain his universe's independence. "You're making the choice our ancients hoped other civilizations would make," Daniel said with approval. "Accepting help while maintaining agency. Using knowledge as tool rather than crutch. That's the balance between intervention and independence that took our universe centuries to achieve." Over the next 48 hours, McKay worked with Daniel Jackson and this universe's Samantha Carter to document the ascension techniques that had successfully transitioned Wraith from predatory feeding to energy-based existence. The science was complex, building on principles the ancients had developed over millions of years. But McKay absorbed it with the voracious enthusiasm of someone who'd found the key to solving their universe's greatest threat. "This works," McKay reported to Sheppard after 2 days of intensive analysis. "The techniques are sound. We can replicate them in our universe using Atlantis' ancient technology as foundation. It won't be easy. We're talking about years of development and testing before we can deploy on scale necessary to offer all Wraith hives the option. But it's possible. We could actually end the culling through evolution rather than genocide. Then, we take this knowledge home," Sheppard decided. "Thank Daniel Jackson and this Earth for their assistance. And we make sure they understand that what we do with this knowledge is our responsibility, our choices about implementation, deployment, and consequences." "They understand," McKay confirmed. "Daniel was very clear about respecting our universe's autonomy. They're offering knowledge, not control." As Atlantis prepared to transit back to their original universe, Daniel Jackson made one final transmission that carried weight beyond simple farewell. "Lieutenant Colonel Sheppard, you've shown wisdom in how you approached this situation. Accepting help while maintaining independence. Taking knowledge while keeping responsibility. That balance is what separates civilizations that thrive from those that collapse under power they're not ready to wield." He paused, and his partially ascended presence seemed to expand slightly. "The multiverse is vast, beyond comprehension. Countless realities, where countless versions of humanity face similar challenges. Some solve them through violence. Others, through acceptance of suffering. A rare few find the balance you're seeking, the path between extremes that preserves both growth and compassion. The ancients in your universe chose non-interference because they feared their power would corrupt those they helped. The ancients in our universe chose intervention because they believed sharing knowledge served a greater good. Both philosophies have merit. Both have costs. The wisdom is knowing which choice serves each situation best." "You're saying there's no universal answer," Sheppard observed. "I'm saying the answer depends on the specific circumstances, the species involved, and the consequences you're willing to accept," Daniel replied. "In the Taelon universe, intervention was necessary to end occupation. In our universe, intervention elevated humanity beyond what we could achieve alone. In your universe." He smiled. "That's for you to determine. The knowledge we've shared gives you options. How you use them defines what your civilization becomes." "No pressure," Sheppard said with slight grin. "Never," Daniel agreed. "Safe travels, Atlantis. May your universe find the balance between power and wisdom. And know that if you need allies across dimensional boundaries, our Earth remembers those who seek knowledge with humility, rather than demand it with arrogance. The transmission ended, and Atlantis activated the portal technology for the return transit. Reality bent, dimensional barriers parted, and the city returned to their original universe with knowledge that could fundamentally transform their approach to the Wraith threat. They emerged in Pegasus Galaxy to find everything exactly as they'd left it 3 days earlier. The Wraith still culling, humanity still struggling, and the war continuing with the same brutal mathematics that had defined it for years. But now Atlantis possessed knowledge from a universe where the Wraith had been offered ascension instead of death, where billions had been saved through evolution rather than genocide, where the ancient philosophy of sharing knowledge had created civilization that commanded power, rivaling the beings who'd taught them. "Report to Stargate Command," Sheppard ordered. "Full documentation of what we found, what we learned, and what it means for our approach to the Wraith. This changes everything." "Everything," McKay agreed, already drafting the scientific papers that would revolutionize their universe's understanding of ascension, evolution, and the possibilities that existed when power was wielded with wisdom. As Atlantis settled back into routine operations, with knowledge that made routine operations anything but routine, Sheppard stood at the city's edge and watched Pegasus Galaxy stars with new understanding. They'd traveled to 2 alternate universes, ended one occupation, forced one species to ascend, learned from another universe's successful integration of ancient knowledge, and returned with the capability to transform their reality's greatest threat from predatory enemy into evolved beings beyond the need for feeding. The mission had expanded beyond exploring a single galaxy, beyond fighting one species of aliens, beyond the parameters anyone had imagined when Atlantis first activated its hyperdrive and set course for Earth. They become travelers between realities, seekers of solutions that transcended dimensional boundaries, proof that humanity's potential extended beyond any single universe's limitations. And somewhere across the multiverse, in realities they'd touched and changed and departed, beings remembered the ancient city ship that arrived by accident and stayed long enough to make everything different. The Taelons, the Geridians, the Ascended Earth, all transformed because Atlantis had passed through their realities and refused to accept that the way things were had to be the way things stayed. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 had saved Pegasus through genocide. Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard was going to save it through evolution. Different universes, different choices, different costs, but the same fundamental mission: protect humanity, no matter what reality you're in or what methods are required. One impossible mission at a time, and the multiverse was vast enough for infinite missions, infinite possibilities, infinite chances to prove that humanity deserved to survive, no matter which universe you called home. Conclusion. The historians of Pegasus would record the years following Atlantis's multiversal expeditions as the era of transformation, when the Wraith were offered ascension rather than extermination, when humanity learned that power could serve evolution rather than domination, and when a single ancient city ship proved that the boundaries between realities were less important than the principles you carried across them. Dr. McKay spent 5 years developing the Wraith Ascension technology, cross-referencing knowledge from the Ascended Earth with ancient databases and Taelon dimensional physics. The first trial succeeded in transitioning an entire Wraith hive from predatory feeding to energy-based existence. The second trial expanded to 3 hives. Within a decade, over 40% of Wraith civilization had accepted ascension as alternative to endless war. The remaining Wraith, who chose to maintain their corporeal existence, found themselves facing coalition of ascended Wraith, ancient equipped humans, and the knowledge that evolution was available whenever they chose to accept it. The culling didn't end immediately. but it transformed from existential threat to managed decline as more Wraith recognized that ascension offered survival their feeding patterns never could. Earth in the Taelon universe maintained its freedom under the protective observation of ascended Taelons who'd learned that partnership required genuine consent. Liam Kincaid's oversight organization ensured the promise of transparency remained real rather than rhetorical. And when the ascended Taelons occasionally contacted Atlantis through dimensional communication, their gratitude was evident in the knowledge they continued sharing. The ascended Earth remained a beacon of what humanity could become when ancient knowledge was shared rather than hoarded. Daniel Jackson maintained periodic contact with Sheppard's universe, offering guidance without demanding control, providing knowledge without requiring dependence. The relationship between universes became proof that intervention and independence could coexist when wisdom guided power. And Atlantis continued its mission, exploring Pegasus, fighting when necessary, seeking solutions that transformed threats rather than simply destroying them. The portal technology remained classified but available, ready for situations that required multiversal perspective or strategic retreat to alternate realities. Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard never forgot the 2 months spent in the Taelon universe, or the lessons learned from the Ascended Earth. Those experiences shaped every subsequent decision about power, intervention, and the responsibility that came with capabilities that could reshape realities. Some called him the leader who'd learned to travel between universes and chose to stay in his own. Others called him the soldier who'd gained access to godlike knowledge and used it with restraint. The truth was simpler. He was someone who'd seen what happened when power was wielded without wisdom, and what happened when wisdom guided power toward growth rather than domination. The multiverse remained vast and full of infinite possibilities. Atlantis remained the ancient city ship that had learned to navigate dimensional barriers as easily as oceans. And sometimes, when situations required it, they used that capability to help realities that needed what they'd learned. One impossible mission at a time, because that's what Atlantis did. Found the impossible, made it possible, and proved that humanity belonged among the stars, no matter which universe those stars belonged to.